I am here.
I can see you talking, Pi, but you're muted on Discord.
There, I was just waiting for you to get in.
I am here.
187 in the house. 187 is the guild leader for Pantheon guild, which is the Divine Council, where we just went over. Saicred's going to have his own guild. I'll let him talk about it if he wants to. Welcome, Saicred.
Thank you.
I kind of did a big announcement, let everyone know about your videos and things like that, and what a great guy your clan is. So how we're looking forward to being allies down the road. So everybody give a warm welcome to Saicred.
Thank you.
Saicred, anything you want to say before we launch the hype video?
Yeah, sure. No, first off, thank you. Thanks guys for jumping on this. Like you said, I've done a few in the past, but really, my main focus is getting some engagement from other people. I love hearing opinions and discussing Pantheon as a whole. So I'm probably more excited than anybody about tonight and just sitting down with you guys and having some conversations and looking forward to getting into testing with you all and just like I said, getting to know everybody. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to it more so every day. So I'm ready for the hype video whenever you are, and then we can kick off some of the discussions.
Yeah, everybody. So basically, I created a hype video to kind of start getting the community going, and I had posted that. So if you hadn't seen it, we're going to run it through. It's about 6 minutes long, but I highly recommend you put some headphones on and turn the volume up, because it's about ready to get real. And if this is a good video to show anybody who doesn't know anything about Pantheon, because it's kind of got everything all in one. So we're ready to roll, Saicred, if you are. Let's do it.
Yeah, I'm ready. I'll mute up. So
Be back. So what does everyone think? Everyone hyped up? 187, what did you think? I know you've seen that before though, right?
Oh yeah, I saw it. I like it. I like it a lot. Yeah,
Okay.
Jabba is multi-talented.
Yeah, he's and I can't wait to see what other soundtracks the guy's got coming, man. Because that first one, the Saga Sands, is just I thought it was perfect. It's got a great beat to do all that timing with. So, first of all, before we start, can everybody hear myself, Saicred, and 187 okay? At least in my chat. I take it that you can because I haven't heard anything yet. So, excellent, excellent. Okay, so basically how we're going to do this now, we're going to go into the topics for the evening, and the topics listed below are PA testing, so pre-alpha testing, which, as you know, or maybe some of you don't know, is coming up in less than a month. We are like kids in a candy shop right now, because let me tell you, we've been waiting for this for a long time. So we're a lot of people out there, and I won't mention names in my chat right now, that are saying that game's never going to happen, man. Come play this game with me. Well, guess what? We'll be testing it here shortly. So pre-alpha testing, we're going to talk about that. Reputation, and reputation actually encompasses a lot of different things, right? It's not just as simple as it sounds. If you all haven't played EverQuest before, it might not sink in as deep as it does if someone who has played it, because reputation is going to be key. And they've said it over and over and over again that in Pantheon, reputation is going to mean everything, right? So we'll get into that. Economy and marketplace, and this is kind of going to be Saicred's specialty here. This is one that he's been wanting to dive into. Can't wait to hear what he's got to say there. And then if we have time, when it's all said and done, we're going to all chime in on the perception system, which is another key thing that's going to be different about Pantheon. So you guys have anything else to say before we dive into the topics?
No, great introduction.
187.
All set here.
All right. That being said, pre-alpha testing. 187, you're up.
All right. First, I just wanted to thank you guys for inviting me tonight. I've never been on a stream or participated in anything like this before, so it's exciting to be a part of this and what you guys are doing. As far as pre-alpha goes, I mean, the hype factor is real. It's been real for a long time. I joined the community, the Pantheon community, back in January, and next thing you know, I was making hype videos and doing my part to try to raise awareness for the game and get other people, pumped to play it, and share different things with the community, and networking. Networking is one of the things I spent a ton of time doing, both on the forum and in the Discord channel and all that. And I think what is really important that they touched on in that video, the Pantheon trailer, when they say bring friends, and that's something that I've more or less it's something that's been driving me since within the first couple months of me joining the community. That's exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to as soon as this game gets going, I want to have a bunch of people to play with. In the past, the other games I've played, it was always organic, and that was fine. It's always fun to meet people on a server and let relationships develop and all that, and that's great. But with Pantheon being so far away, and we're obviously getting closer, but with all that time that we know for sure is going to be dedicated to development and whatnot, and we all had an opportunity to participate in theory crafting and all that kind of stuff. I just wanted to spend as much time as possible getting to know people and get the ball rolling. So as soon as the game actually launches, I'll have a lot of friends to play with. So I'm personally really looking forward to testing. It's something I've been waiting for all year. I remember earlier this year, I thought that there was a chance we might see pre-alpha in quarter 2. That did not come into fruition, and that's okay. We just need to let Team VR do what they got to do and release things when it's ready. Vanguard is a game I did play in the past. I played it for, I don't know, maybe 6 months, 7 months, 8 months. I can't remember exactly, but when that game launched, I brought my entire guild from EverQuest 2 over to Vanguard, and we were super pumped to play it. And it was a really good game. I liked it a lot. I loved a lot of the different things from Vanguard. I liked the diplomacy. I loved their take on races, the open world, and travel. And the only thing that I wasn't really happy with was the amount of content, and specifically endgame. Like we got to Rasenkur and Templa Tihatamani and all that, but we ran out of stuff to do. And I don't fault Brad or his team at the time, because I know there was a lot of pressure from the publishing company to push the game out before it was ready. And Pantheon is being developed in a way where we're not gonna see that kind of problem. Where they're gonna take their time. And so, as excited as I am to play it, as excited as I've been to jump into testing, the bigger part of me wants to remain patient and just, I don't want them to rush it no matter what. As excited as I am to get in there and start, doing everything, I don't want the game to release before it's ready. So, um, as far as how many people are going to be in there, that's something I'm pretty excited about. I don't have any hard numbers or data on this, but I think some of the numbers that have been floating around are over 800. So that's a lot of people that are going to be involved in pre-alpha. So it's going to be pretty jam-packed. Other than that, I'm obviously super, super looking forward to playing with people in TDC. This has been a long time coming. We've had our channel, and we've been going back and forth, bouncing ideas off each other, and we spent a ton of time preparing, and thinking about everything that we can do to make the guild successful and start running real smoothly as soon as we get in there. But I'm also looking forward to testing with all the other VIPs. I mean, we got a really nice VIP community, and this is going to be a great opportunity for all of us, not just to play with our inner circle of friends and whatnot, but to truly be there from the beginning, get to know everybody. I mean, there's a lot of relationships I have with people outside of TDC, and I know that this might be my one chance to be able to play with them. People like Cromulent, the guy that's heading the Pantheon crafter site, people that are in different time zones and that might play on a European server or whatnot. I'm really looking forward to the opportunity to I know we're not going to be playing the game, but it's going to feel like we're playing, right? We're going to be in there, we're going to mess around with stuff, try to break everything. But I'm really looking forward to just seeing how everything pans out, seeing how everybody pulls together, and seeing everything happen.
Okay, Saicred, before you chime in, I just wanted to say also, 187, if you were taking on monitoring the questions in chat, right? If anyone in my chat has a question, just form it like I did earlier, do question all caps and then form a question after that. And 187 is going to compile those and try to get back to you as soon as we can in between. On that note, Saicred, you're up. Pre-alpha testing.
Yeah, no, I can't say enough about what you just said as far as like getting to play with people that we're not going to be able to play the game with after launch. That's something for me. I made a lot of friends in the VIP Discord and things like that, and just as you with Cromulent and others, that there's a very, very good chance that I will not be playing with them come actual release. But during testing, that's an opportunity that I definitely want to take advantage of. A lot of good people out there that have really done a lot to raise awareness for Pantheon and spread the word about how excited we are as a community for this game. And it's a shame that I won't get to play with all of them once we get past release, because we really have spent months and months together already, just in a Discord channel or on the forums, hanging out, having a good time. But I am looking forward to testing it and getting to at least experience that with them. And then who knows, we might end up on the same server. We might be able to enjoy the game together after release, but I would suspect that most likely not for most of them. So I'm definitely on board with that thought. I love that idea. I think it's something that some people haven't thought of yet, and I'm hoping that as we get through testing, they really kind of understand the kind of the memories we're making here. So really neat. On top of that, though, like you said, you mentioned Vanguard and other games, and unfortunately, I wasn't a part of that. And I say unfortunately because even though it was it had its ups and downs and struggles, it was a game that I look back at now and I read about and I see what they did and were doing with the game, and I'm kind of disappointed that I missed some of that. So for me, this is kind of a I guess you could say a catch up series for me when it gets into Pantheon and testing. I feel like I'm reliving some of those memories that I didn't make with other games such as Vanguard and even EQ2. I just never got into myself. So while I went to a different direction, some different MMOs, some of the ones that I look back at now and wish I would have kind of drifted over into their direction, this is kind of a makeup for me. And for me, it comes from day one, building those relationships, as you said, making those friends, making those memories. I'm looking for new memories, new friends, and some new things to look back on and go, man, that was a good time. That was a good time. So.
All right. Awesome. As far as pre-alpha testing, I guess I'll take a different approach here. This is something we've been waiting for a long time. For those of you wondering, we don't really know what to expect when we're going to, it's pre-alpha, right? So I think most of us have been in alpha before. I've been in alpha before and a lot of betas, but I can't honestly say I've really been in a lot of pre-alphas, right? So I think the expectation needs to be, we need to go in there, not only have fun, but make a difference, right? They're going to probably pocket it in certain times, and they're going to try to stress servers and do different things like that, right? It's not going to be the glamour of playing a full, MMO all the way to finish, right? So you're going to be starting up and you're going to be starting over. You're going to probably come in at a level 1 initially, maybe, and then sometimes you can probably come in at a level 10, just depending on what areas they want to test and what they're going to be looking for. Basically, us trying to break the game, trying to break the servers. So it's not going to be a real, in my mind, maybe it is, but just being in the game is going to be a lot of fun, but it's not going to be that glamorous, hey, we're in there playing the game before anyone else. Actually, we're in there going to try to make a difference to make a better game for everybody else. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, you make a great point, and I share that sentiment big time. Obviously, we're not going to be playing the game. They've never labeled it as early access or anything like that. They've made it very clear that we're going to be in there to test everything out, and like you said, it's going to be scheduled. Who knows exactly what to expect? I know a lot of people are in big time anticipation, waiting to hear more. Like, we just can't wait to find out what is it that we're going to be doing. I think it's going to be a mixed bag of a lot of different things, and but like you said, though, I think it's really special to be a part of the development of this game so early on, and considering like what happened with Vanguard and whatnot, like to be in a position to where not just myself, but the entire VIP community, and also people who join later in alpha and beta, to have so many people that are genuinely excited to be a part of this and provide feedback, and the opportunity that we might potentially influence something that happens in the game. Brad's been pretty transparent with the notion that if something doesn't work out as it was planned, if something doesn't end up being fun, or if it ends up being a bigger headache than it was worth, then it'll get yanked and it won't make its way into the game. So I'm right there with you in terms of looking at this as a true testing thing. And one of the lead devs, I think he's the senior tester, Convo, he actually mentioned that they're going to have some sort of contest or whatever. They're going to have something going on where they're going to be keeping track of contributions, so they're going to be looking out for people who are really contributing, trying to whether it's offering bug reports or sharing feedback, whatever the case is. they're going to have an eye out for super testers, and that's exciting, right? Because I want to be a super tester. I want to deliver exactly whatever it is that they're looking for in an ideal tester. Um, I'm going to have a ton of fun doing it too. I'm actually going to have a lot of fun just providing feedback and trying to break the game and identifying bugs and doing exactly what they're looking for. So, good points.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, and then I was just to say the other thing I wanted to say too, and this leads in all the way, and everyone kind of knows this, but this is going to be a great opportunity because I don't know about you guys and everyone else that's out there listening. I have no idea. I thought I knew what I was going to play. I played a really good monk in EverQuest, and I played an enchanter. And some of the people I played with are actually in my channel right now. And trust me, I thought, oh yeah, I'm going to play the enchanter, in Pantheon. But I honestly don't know. I had the luxury of playing the game a little bit when I was at TwitchCon, and I'll tell you, like the shaman, I just got to play the shaman just a little bit, and I saw all the spells that it had. I suggest that whoever is going to be out there, whether it be pre-alpha, alpha, or beta, that's a great opportunity to play as many classes as you can. And at that point, you can kind of figure out, maybe what you want to ultimately play. I think it's a great opportunity to figure that out.
yeah, no, during testing, that's a really good point. And I'll do the same thing as well. I'm looking to really kind of be diverse with my selection of who I'm going to be playing and when I'm going to be playing them, just to experience as much as I can, so that hopefully by the time I get to release, I'm able to figure out what exactly. Even though I have a good idea now, I'm pretty sure I got it locked down. You never know what's going to happen. But I will say, as 187 was saying there about those super tester roles and those individuals that are really going above and beyond, to make the game, as good as it can possibly be, to suggest those improvements, enhancements, and to really catch some of those things that might not be caught on a normal basis. I'm excited to see those individuals really step out in the testing and become known for it. I'm hoping that we do have individuals that are highlighted for those efforts that they're putting in. We see people such as streamers or YouTubers, or we see people with a lot of media and influence that get highlighted for what they're doing to promote the game. But for me, for those testers that are kind of in the background that maybe don't want to be on the forefront, those individuals are the ones that are really going to make this game what it is going to be in years and years to come. It's great to have a lot of people there, but if the content's not there, if the bugs aren't fixed, if the game's not ready to play, and everything hasn't been tested thoroughly, then it's kind of like what 187 said about Vanguard. You're going to end up finding a could have been great game, and you're just going to run out of things to do, or things aren't going to work correctly. So I'm hoping that we see those individuals really kind of take a spotlight, even if it's a kind of a back scene spotlight for VR. I'm hoping they really find a way to help them stand out, or to at least acknowledge their efforts and make them known. So I'm looking forward to that, but I'll go back to it. I'm looking forward to making friends during testing. I really am. I'm looking forward to getting in there and just finding everything I can, reporting everything I can, testing everything I can, whether it be class, race, or perception, whatever it is. I'm excited about it, but I am excited to hopefully make a difference in the game, to influence it. As was stated already, there's a lot of things that, for me, I have very strong opinions, and I know that all three of us, we have our own opinions, and we're three of a million individuals with a million opinions. But I'm hoping that we can suggest our opinions in a way that's useful for VR, that they can take and really make something of it, not just random feedback that's going to be kind of tossed to the side or not utilized, but feedback that's going to be taken and actually used to hopefully critique the game and make it what we all hope and dream that it can be in the future. So I'm looking forward to seeing all the testers and what their feedback is as they're giving it. So I didn't know if 187, I didn't know if you had anything else to add to that, or
I think that pretty much sums it up. I mean, I think we're all on the same page, and we're all here. I think for the most part for the same reason. And as time goes on, though, and once we get in there, everything that we kind of touched on is gonna come into fruition, and we'll be able to feel it. So, yeah, it's gonna be like I said, it's been a long time coming, and I'm super excited to be a part of it. And I've encouraged a lot of people that I've run into to get into the pre-alpha pledge if they can afford it. I don't want anybody to put a mortgage on the house or anything like that, but if you can get in there and not hurt yourself doing it and be a part of something special. You know how many people I've run into over the years that, especially in the Pantheon community, somebody will tell me, I played EverQuest all the way from beta, back in 1998. I was there from the beginning. There's a lot of people out there, and you see them talking about it, and they're proud. And to have an opportunity to be in that position for Pantheon, that's what it's all about.
I agree. Hey,
Absolutely.
187, if you want to take this opportunity, maybe there's some questions. I don't know if you have some on your side too, Saicred. Can you look through and maybe let's answer a couple of those questions?
Yeah,
I got 4 questions over here.
Go for it.
Okay, first one was from Padmandro. Say I never saw a video about this game. Why should I start playing Pantheon? Honestly, I think the biggest incentive would be to talk to somebody who has seen a video. Word of mouth is one of the best ways to get the word out for things, and people appreciate hearing from their friends or family what they care about or what they're interested in a lot more than seeing a commercial or whatever on TV. So if you haven't seen it, odds are, if you know somebody who has, they will be telling you about it, because I tell all my friends about Pantheon. I go out of my way not to just tell my friends, but, like I played on a vanilla WoW server recently, and I'm in a bunch of different Discord channels, and I'm always promoting Pantheon, trying to get people to watch that first video, so if you haven't seen a video, obviously you should check one out, and I definitely recommend some of the newer ones because they have come a long way with the graphics. The new lighting and shading effects are tremendous. Um, but yeah, as far as why exactly, just look at the tenants, look at the features, see what the game is all about, look into the passion that's motivating them to create this world for us. And that's something that Brad has said specifically, is that he's looking to build worlds, not games, and that right there should be something to convert somebody pretty easily.
Saicred, any comments?
Yeah, no, actually, that was I'm agreeing with you completely on that. I think the differences of Pantheon actually on the website is a good start for anybody that's looking into it. But if I had to just tell somebody, if they were wondering why they should look into Pantheon as an MMO for them, what would cause them to want to play this game? Really, for me, my comment has always been, and I've actually said this to a few people, which is, I'm not here to convince you to play. If you want to play, great. If you don't, great. It's not going to be a game for everybody, and we are accepting that as a community. We don't want a game for everybody. That's the whole backing behind this experience. We don't want just a game that's built for everybody, because we've seen that in MMOs. We've seen that over the years. We've seen every single one of those MMOs that has come that's been built for everyone, and we've seen it go. So, one or two stayed around, but the rest of them have come and go. And we don't want that. We want that experience that's unique to what we enjoy, what we like, that risk versus reward, that challenge back in an MMO that's going to cost us a little time, a little effort, a little extra due diligence to really make a difference in, progressing through the game. We want that. We don't want to just have things handed to us. And for me, when I say we, I think I speak for the community, because that's what the general gist of what this game is, and hopefully is going to be a challenging, rewarding game that, we all feel like we've accomplished something every time we log off the game.
Awesome. My comment on this is, people ask, why should you play this game over another game? I am often and very honest. And I say, look, this game might not be for you, because I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm a frustrated gamer. I've been a frustrated gamer for a while. I mean, I've found some fun games here and there, but damn, every game you see is unfinished. It's in beta. It's in beta for years, right? I mean, you're playing it. A lot of times they ruin it with cash shops, or they, stuff you've worked hard for and you've earned. I won't mention the game I'm talking about, but all of a sudden it comes out in a cash shop and wow, there goes all your hard work, right? It's just stupid decisions and unfinished games and by the quite honestly easy games. You know, I think WoW is an easy game until you get to like mythic rating and stuff. That might be a different story, but I mean, up until then, it's a simple game. You know, you can have one character run through every zone and be safe. Never have to worry about it. And if you die, guess what? You just spirit walk back and pick it right back up, and then you just go right back again wherever you're trying to go to. But let me tell you, this game you can't do that. You're not going to be able to just run carelessly anywhere without thought. Around every corner, potentially around every rock, every fallen tree, even approaching a structure, you don't know if that faction is going to be against you or not. It's a game of caution. It's a game of synergy with friends. You can't, one character can't do it all. So you're going to have to make good relationships. We'll talk about reputation next. So you have to have all these things, right? You're always looking, this is the way I feel, and I hope it's this way, just like EverQuest was in some fashion. You're always kind of looking over your shoulder, right? You never know what's coming. You never know what your friends are bringing. So it's got to keep you on your toes all the time. And it's a very tough game. It's going to be, the experience to gain is going to be tough. It's not a game you're going to come in and rush through. It's a game you're going to play for several years and you're going to make lasting relationships.
Good stuff. I have another follow-up question that kind of touches on some of what you were just talking about, which is, you know, basically people need to earn their way. There's a lot of developers out there. You see what's happened recently with EA and the whole Star Wars thing, and you know, the most disliked post in Reddit history because of how they're implementing some of their, I don't know if it's loot boxes or whatever. I didn't even look into it a whole lot, but I understand what's going on and what people are frustrated about. But the other question that we have from Padmandro is the problem with developers today is that they are way too focused on making money. I personally like CD Projekt Red from the creators of The Witcher 3 because they are more focused on quality over quantity. Do you feel the same with the devs of Pantheon? And to answer that specifically, I absolutely feel that that's the goal for Pantheon. If you go back to the tenants and if you read Brad's blogs, he actually has quite a bit of blog material on the website on the Pantheon forum. If you want to take the time to read up on some of the different things that he shared over the years that he's been doing this, but basically, it's funny too because there was a conversation that just came up, I think yesterday, from Brad, where there was a thread on the forum where somebody was talking about, please no more loot boxes. We don't want to see that. And he kind of tossed us a curveball and said, okay, well, hey, what do you guys think about a Plex server? An isolated server to be like a special rule set. Nothing can be transferred to or from that server. It would be isolated, but basically it would have something similar to Chronos or the WoW subscription tokens, where people could buy these tokens and then sell them in game for gold or whatever. And if you saw the response from the community, it was pretty
Harsh.
people really, I would say harsh is a good word. Yeah. People just don't want to see that. And now I will say that the same discussion came up on the VIP forum probably a few months ago. Somebody mentioned, hey, maybe we could do Plex, and I think I might even know what Brad was talking about when he said it came up, because Keldaria, that's another person in the forum. They haven't been terribly active lately, but they brought up some angle on how Plex could work, and so he there are people out there who see merit in having a feature like that. So it's not like everybody is against it, but I will say the crowd, the audience that has been attracted to Pantheon, they don't want that kind of stuff. They want to see a game where you do actually have to earn things. And literally within one day of him posting that question, he came back on, and he responded. He's like, hey guys, thanks, I appreciate the feedback. I was interested to hear your guys' stories and your take on how something like this might have worked in another game, and what do you guys think about it? And he more or less said, from my impression, is that we're not going to see it in Pantheon. He, came to the conclusion that, hey, yeah, after seeing what you guys got to say about it, I think you guys are right. Like this, there could be potential bleed over where it could have an impact even on other servers, and that's not something they want. Um, it strays away from the vision, of earning your way through this game. And but I don't think there's anything wrong with talking about stuff, right? Like I'm always the person that's going to say, hey, we can talk about anything, we can debate it, bring it up. Everybody's free to share their opinion and whatnot. We don't need to be super critical of each other. Um, and the fact that there are some people out there who have an interest in something like that, that's fine. So it's worthy enough of to warrant having a discussion about in the first place. But to pretty quickly be able to make that decision where it's just like, you guys are right, this isn't something for us, this isn't the route we want to go. I admired that. It was sticking to his guns. And he even mentioned too that his initial reaction when the question was posed to him is that, no, I don't want it, I don't want to see it. But he wanted to give it a chance, and I appreciate that if somebody has an idea that might be a little bit controversial, it might be a little bit gray area on whether or not it could work. The fact that he's willing to at least entertain the idea and see if it could work, that's great. And so that's just an example of why, absolutely, yes, I feel that they are committed to making a game that's focused on quality over quantity. They've said time and time again, we're not going to see cash shops. But at the same time, they're keeping doors open, right? They don't want to just completely shut anything out if it doesn't make smart business sense. Like, this is a business. We want Pantheon to be successful. If there's things that they can do that aren't going to hurt the game, that aren't going to hurt people who want meaningful progression to earn their way, then it's a good thing to have that dialogue open and let people discuss it like adults without killing each other. So, but that's where we're at.
Yeah, no, and I'll just add to that as well. So one of the things too, so there's two things with that. Do I feel like the developers are passionate about this game? They're doing it out of passion, not out of greed, more or less. Absolutely. I don't know if anyone's had the chance to listen to the developers talk about what they're doing within Pantheon, but if you have ears and you're able to sit down with the developers for any amount of time, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour and a half, you will hear nothing but just pure passion come out of their voice. I mean, they are truly excited about what they're doing, and they are happy to share it with you. And that is such a refreshing feeling when you have someone who's creating a game that you're so excited about, that you yourself are looking, forward to, and you've got a lot of hope and a lot of prayer that this is really what's going to happen, and it's finally going to be coming true. And you hear these people talk, when I say these, I mean the developers for VR. You hear them talk, and they're just radiant with passion. I mean, it's pretty inspiring just to sit down and listen to them for a little bit. But on that note as well, one of the things I took away from Brad's post, and I wasn't going to bring it up because I know it was kind of a rough subject for some, but for me, the one thing I took away from that post was people talk about Pantheon being a classic MMO, that it's just going to be some, bringing back the old school, and that right there alone should help prove the fact that Brad leading this project has an open mind. He is keeping his eyes out. He's looking to the future. He's finding ways to make this game sustainable in the future, not just bringing back the past for a few months, a year or two, but he's looking to bring us into the future of MMOs. He's looking to ways to enhance the game and continue to move it forward. And maybe there's some ideas out there, and again, he's getting community feedback. He's reaching out. He's actually listening. He's letting us as a community speak, and he's listening. He's taking that feedback and he's actually doing something with it. And that's again what I kind of touched on with the whole pre-alpha testing piece. I want to see what they're going to do with our feedback. Well, I can see it right now that Brad's able to take that feedback and actually make some decisions, or at least help him make decisions that he might have already predetermined in his mind. But still, he's taking that feedback and he's listening to the community. He's hearing what they have to say. And again, that's refreshing to hear. So yeah, I have no doubt in my mind this development team is 100% passionate about what they're doing. They're excited about it. And for me, that says it all about the game and where it's going and what they're trying to do with it.
And on that note, if you guys haven't seen the latest video, a stream they released with Co-Carnage, look it up. It's called The Making of a City, right? Check that out. And to both of these guys' points, if you don't think these guys are passionate about what they're doing, it was amazing. Matter of fact, it was almost concerning. And we know what we're talking about when we say concerning, because they're just such passionate devs that every little piece seems to have meaning. And it's, when you're building a world as big as this is, it's a little scary to think how far behind they probably could be, because they refuse to just mass produce this gigantic world, right? They're taking every little section, and it ties in with the lore, and it ties in with the history and the races, and all the way down to the architecture. The buildings make sense to the lore, to the races, it's unbelievable. And then the detail of the grass that they've done, this is all pre-alpha, guys. So they've added, backdrops to the soils, right? So you're not just looking at grass, you're looking at a lot of the texture beyond the grass on the ground, like twigs and dirt and patches. And I mean, it's amazing. So check out that video. Just go to YouTube, Co-Carnage, Pantheon, Rise of the Fallen, Making of a City. And I highly recommend checking that out. You'll see what we mean as far as their passion. Highly worth looking at. Okay, to kind of move things along, we're going to go to the next topic, which is going to be reputation. And that would be me leading this off. So we talked about reputation earlier, and again, we're going to have different interpretations of it. So I'm anxious to hear both of your comments on this, especially guys that have played EverQuest. I think we both have, or all three of us have, right?
Yeah.
So with reputation, why is this important, right? Well, I'll tell you why. Go play WoW. Go play endless beta games, MMOs that are out there. Do you really think you have to have a reputation in there? No. Matter of fact, you can be the biggest, excuse my language, you can be the biggest dick out there, and it's not going to have any consequences to your gameplay. None whatsoever. But guess what? You try to do this in Pantheon with the community going on, and the fact that you need groups, you need friends, you need guild alliances, you need a lot of allies to pull things off, right? So if you're the one person going around there, and guess what? It's going to be an open world. The mobs are going to there's going to be no tethering. They're going to have individual intelligence. You're going to be able to split them up. They're going to have aggro, but you're going to be able to manipulate them with class skills, right? And things like that. However, with that being said, you're going to have the ability to greet people. You're going to have, to troll people. You're going to be able to pull mobs in and wipe a whole group out if you want. Exactly. They're saying train in the chat. It's exactly right. They call it train back in EverQuest days. You could do all that. You could be the biggest jerk you want, but the three of us sitting here, and a lot of people in our chats know it's not going to last long. You want to keep that up, you're going to develop what we call the reputation, and no one's going to want to do anything for you. No one's going to want you in their guild. The guild leaders a lot of times will get with other guild leaders and actually find out, was this really happening? VR's not going to get involved, they're not. It's going to be up to the community to dictate that server's atmosphere, right? So anyway, that's the cool thing about this is, yeah, it might be stressful at first because you're going to have people that'll grieve you or your groups, and you're going to get stressed out. And look, I'm one of the worst. I'm an intense player. Sim and my wife that's in chat, she will tell you I'm a very intense player. If people do that stuff to me, I try to handle it with dignity and with a good reputation. I mean, reputation's good, but I usually want to get revenge, right? But the thing is, in the long run, it's going to cost that person to have a negative reputation in a game like this. That's another huge difference that I see on what Pantheon's going to bring to the table. And I know this for a fact because the devs have said it over and over. Reputation and community is going to matter. Next in the line, I had 187. You're up.
As far as reputation goes, you're right. Like in a lot of games, it just doesn't matter, and I think that's a byproduct of some of the convenience changes that have taken over MMOs. Something like Dungeon Finder, for example, where you get queued up, you get teleported to the dungeon. You don't really have any vested interest in your group. It's just a matter of getting from point A to point B and then getting back to what you're doing. You don't care about these people after you're done because you're not, quite likely you're not going to see them again. So for Pantheon to get back to the group centric game where you can't do everything by yourself, um, there's not going to be dungeon finder tools. Uh, Everything is going to require friends, and it could even delve into so much more. Like this, we're just considering. Like if somebody trained you or whatever, they're going to get a bad reputation. I will say that I think VR will try to police some of that, like in serious cases, like if there's um a griefer that does it continually and he gets mass reported by a bunch of people, they'll look into it. They'll check to make sure that people aren't griefing others and looking to disrupt the game, and in some cases they'll take action. But in today's age, I think it's way easier to record footage, than it ever was before. So like when I played, my first MMO EQOA on the PS2, it was difficult enough to get a damn keyboard hooked up to the game. I remember making macros, to discuss raid chat. We didn't have voice chat. We had to make macros to explain the strat and whatnot. But nowadays, it's pretty easy to get some sort of recording software installed on your computer, and to be on the lookout. So especially if you know people that have a bad reputation, you have that ready. Be ready to go, to record them in the act. And that's going to help you if you do report somebody and you have that footage. You could just literally pop up a video on YouTube and say, here, check it out. Here's them doing the evil deed, no questions asked, they're caught. What will you do about it? So I think in serious cases, VR will try to step in. But for the most part, reputation is going to matter. It's not just we're not going to rely on just VR to ban people or suspend people or whatever. Somebody not being able to get a group, somebody not being able to get a res, somebody not being able to have their corpse dragged somewhere, somebody, you know, maybe somebody won't be willing to, sell something to you. Who knows? Like there's so many different atmospheres in the game that this could roll over to, where your reputation is going to matter. So, one thing that I actually started was on Pantheon MMO. That's a fan site that I've been working on for a while. Is there's a section dedicated specifically to exposing trollish behavior. So if somebody's out there and they're repeatedly training you or spamming you or harassing you or whatever, try to record that and put it up there for the world to see, and then let people come to their own conclusions on whether or not it's worthy to respond to, or blacklist people. Like that's the important thing. That's the power of the community, is that if people get a bad reputation, it's going to carry over, and it could even carry over cross server. Like I don't think there's going to be a way for us to account flag people to where if they make an alt, you'll be able to see them. But the cool thing is that it's going to take a long time to do things in Pantheon. You have to earn things. Just getting to max level is going to take a long time. So with reputation being important, let's say you spend all that time getting to max level, and then you have this bad reputation. Think about the cost of your actions. Like if you have to re-roll on another server, you could have just flushed hundreds or thousands of hours of and time invested in the game down the toilet. So, and I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen in other games where people ruin their reputation, and it's not something that anybody should want any part of. So, and now the opposite side of this, which is also very true and very cool, is good reputation, right? Reputation mattering is not just a matter of exposing trolls. Like we want the good people out there to be recognized for being that helpful player, whether it's taking on a new guy and showing him the way, and or if it's a guild that goes out of their way to help people, not just in game but maybe outside the game. If it's creating class guides and things like that. Reputation is going to be important both ways, good and bad, and that's something that I'm really it's really refreshing to see the emphasis that's being put on it, from the development team. The game is being designed in a way to where that stuff is going to matter, and that's something we haven't seen in a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, oh, just had a comment here. No one will port you, res you, group with you, guilds will kick you. You know, I don't know about you, but I know about when I was in EQ, not having someone there to res me meant I could spend days trying to figure out what in the world I was gonna do. Um, Not quite days because my corpse would disappear, but hey, it happened. Uh, but again, yeah, I agree with you absolutely. Your reputation in this game, unlike other games where you might be able to get by on a solo basis, you might be able to even find a small group of people that kind of have the same mindset as you and don't really care about others and their feelings and I don't know, maybe want to push the limits of what they can do because it's the internet and hey, why not? Well, I know for a fact, even when it was early or late EQ doesn't matter, but back in it was early 2000s for me when I was playing EQ. I remember many people that were known for their bad reputation, and even just having people that would trade with them was difficult. Whether it was a guild that shut them off and said, "Hey, if you see this person, we're not taking their money," or whether it was just the community as a whole knew them and said, "Hey, we're not grouping with you. We're not taking your money. We're not trading with you. We just don't want to deal with you at this point in time. Please find another game to play or another server to play on, or like you said, re-roll a character and try to do better next time." And for a game like that, where you spent months just getting to where you were, or even years, having to re-roll a character would potentially, cause you to basically lose a year's worth of effort. Having no ability to make trades or having to do workarounds to make trades just made the game difficult. It made it hard. It made it taxing on players, and they really started to understand, hey, I can't do this. I cannot continue to play this game. I've either got to play a different game or I've got to figure out a way to get my reputation back so that people know that I've changed or I'm doing better. Because the community as a whole could stand up and just really make playing the game a very difficult experience, even more so than it already was. So for me, there's different ways besides training somebody. There's different ways besides just sitting there and blacklisting somebody. There's ways to control the community in kind of a positive way. It's hey, we're just gonna ignore you. We're gonna leave you alone. And a game like this, where grouping and having friends, having guild mates, having people to experience the game with is so critical to even progressing in the game. Just that alone can make this game very, very, very difficult on somebody. And again, I think it's going to be something where the community as a whole has to agree upon, what they're going to do and how they're going to handle situations and individuals. And I'm excited to see how each server does that, because it's a lot different now than it was back in the early 2000s when we dealt with it in EQ. Being we're getting into almost 2020 time frame when we're looking into Pantheon and playing the game on release. I'm excited to see what happens, because the internet has changed drastically. The amount of players playing the game, the different age groups, everything about the community in the gaming world as a whole has pretty much changed from that point. And I think that there's a lot of the key concepts and fundamentals that can be brought back and really instilled in the community. But I think there's some things going forward that we'll have to experience and kind of work through as a community as well. And hopefully it'll just help us grow together. And again, whether you're in a guild or not, whether you're somebody that's playing with a small guild, a small group of friends, or if you're in a major guild and really leading the server forward in progression, I think that we're going to all experience some things within the community as a whole on each server that's going to be unique, and it's going to be fun to experience and see how we work through that as a community.
Awesome stuff, man. Awesome stuff. 27, you want to circle up some questions?
Sure. Yeah, we got a couple more. Question number 3 was from Mako. What made you decide this game was for you, and what are you most excited about in its features?
I'll start it if you want on this one. So Okay, this is actually pretty good because I think some of us fell into this trap too. So I was a 10-year EverQuest player, right? Led a guild, did pretty much everything there was to do. I started in 1999 when they launched it. I was in awe when I looked around. It was like the first online game I had played. Just couldn't fathom that people were live running around me. I was like, what? You know, and I remember looking at my, this is going somewhere, by the way. I remember looking at my inventory and there was rusty, or like rags and a rusty sword, and you know, and I'm like, oh, this is crazy, right? So 10 years later, I was still playing that game. So then for some reason, you know, it just kind of fell out. You know, that's a long time to keep a game going, and then the expansions kind of started leaning toward kind of what you see in some of the modern games. It had a hard time holding it together, right? I mean, it's still around today, but wasn't the same game that we knew right back in 1999. So I did, like a lot of people did, I started hearing rumors about EverQuest Next, right? EverQuest Next was going to be the big new modern day MMO that's going to, you know, take EverQuest original to the next level, right? So we got onto the hype train, and honestly, I know a lot of the negative feedback out there about maybe people have about Pantheon, and you know, the fact that it started Kickstarter, and you know, it's taking sponsorships and just different things to keep it running. Well, I get it, because EverQuest Next is a classic example of a game. Hell, I went to Vegas. I spent money on tickets and tried to talk Jameer, who's in my chat, to going with me, and he was smart and didn't go, but I went. I had a great time, but and I was hyped up and I was excited. Damn, you know, then there was a takeover, right? Gets sold out. Daybreak Games gets a hold of it. Maybe I'm leaving some details out, but you know, and they started with Landmark, right? A building game. You're going to be able to take, anyway, there's a lot of hype. You can read a history on it. Point is, that thing fell right on its face. It got closed down. That never happened, right? So I remember feeling hyped up when I was there in Vegas at the show, because trust me, I wanted a game like this for a long, long time, right? So I guess in the back of my mind, I've always kind of held, and again, I think I'm this way too. No matter what happens, I always have a little bit of hope, right? There's always a little bit of part of me that's gonna have that hope and cling on to, you know, maybe there's that game that's really gonna come through and give us everything we want, right? Well, then I heard about Pantheon, right? I heard about Brad McQuaid, who is the original guy that started EverQuest, right? This is his project. He's a part of the company. Started reading up about it, right? And I've been a part of the forums, like it's going on 2 years, but I know it's been around longer than that. And so once I started reading the tenets and the, you know, the things that they put forth, why, you know, the Pantheon difference, you know, things like this, that by the way, you can find on the website I posted earlier. It's those kind of things that started saying, you know what, these guys have passion. I got to take a chance. I need to support this game monetarily, because I hope there's a lot of people out there that think the same way I do, and we can push this thing to actually happen. And guess what? And by the way, they have a really nice community on the Pantheon forums. You can tell it's just growing and growing. So I kind of heard about it, and honestly, I became a VIP member. That's how much I wouldn't say that I trusted they would have a final product. I don't think anyone could really say that, because you never know. But damn, I wanted it to happen, right? And it's not going to happen without people's support. So I think a lot of us pulled together with the same type of thought process, same kind of belief. And guess what? We're about ready to pre-alpha test this thing within a month. So that's kind of my hype train about Pantheon, how that all got started, but it's all good stuff. Who's next?
Remind me of the question. You got me thinking about EverQuest Next, and I forgot the question.
The question specifically is, what made you decide that this game was for you, and what are you most excited about in its features?
All right, so I was actually kind of on the same hype train with EverQuest Next, and I won't go too much into that because it is a sore spot for me. However, the sore spot is I'm actually a little bit grateful for how it all turned out, because I wouldn't have found Pantheon if it hadn't. So, you know, for me, I had unfortunately almost given up on MMOs. Past 2010, I just really I spent 7 months overseas for deployment, came back, and I could not get myself back into MMOs. I tried to get back into several different ones, and it was just one after another. It just felt like it was missing everything. It wasn't the same experience. There wasn't the same community. The feeling of challenge, of really taking some risk. I never felt it. I just felt like I was doing the same thing over and over again, and I was getting very bored very quickly with every single MMO I played. So I started to give up on MMOs, and around 2013 myself, stepped out of the I stepped out of the Marines and came back home and played a bunch of random games, and I've been playing random games ever since. And finally, I came across EverQuest Next, and started to actually have some hope. And then the whole fallout came, and everything happened the way it did, and I was kind of back on that. Well, there's nothing out there now. And then I don't know what happened, but somehow or another, I decided to go looking one day for other MMOs that were out there. I started finding all these different ones, and there's a few out there that I'm still looking at and following. But I came across Pantheon, and at first I was like, okay, well, the March video in 2016, I joined midway or fall actually of 2016, and the March video in 2016, it was a little bit rough, but it reminded me a lot of EverQuest. The pace of the game, how things were going, and just kind of listening to the developers play throughout the game. And I got interested, and I started looking into the game a little bit more. And like you said, I looked at the differences of the game, and I looked at really the direction they were trying to take the game overall. And it wasn't the gameplay that really got me. It wasn't the differences on the forums. It wasn't the community in the forums at all. It was actually I went and started reading a little bit about Brad, and I started reading some posts that Brad had about Pantheon and his vision and his ideas. And the more I started to read about Brad and what his ideas were and where his mindset was with this game, and where he wanted to take it and to go with it, I couldn't help but start getting excited, because everything that he was talking about, the entire conversation that he was having, his blogs that I was reading through, everything that I wanted, that I was looking for, that I was kind of sad that I was almost sure I was never going to see again, I started to see coming to light, and I started to see it, coming through Pantheon and what I was reading. So for me, it really comes down to Brad. I looked at the leader of the program. I looked at the one that was really driving, the force here and making this all come together. And I wanted to see his thoughts and perspective. And if it wasn't for Brad putting his mind out there in his blogs, they would have never grabbed my attention the way they did, and I would have never become a VIP. But because of that, I definitely I got excited. I joined as a VIP, and I've been one ever since. And it's been an amazing ride just through the VIP Discord and forums and things like that, and getting to know everybody and see the devs, like I said, come through with their passion, and just hearing everything that comes through as far as the game goes in development. Each little thing that happens or is brought up, or each conversation, just gets me a little more excited about the game and where they're trying to take it. So for me, yeah, it was definitely Brad and his comments, his thoughts on what he wanted to do with MMOs going forward, with Pantheon specifically going forward.
Excellent. 187, any other questions before we move on?
I wanted to answer that one real quick.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, so basically I had a similar experience as you guys. There was that pit, the void rather, where there's no MMO. I played EQA, Final Fantasy 11, EverQuest 2 for a good while, played Vanguard for a while, played WoW for a while, and the PvP in WoW was actually fantastic, but the PvE, I lost all hope. When I realized that it's like, wow, this is the #1 game in the country, this is what defines what an MMO is, I was going crazy. I'm sitting there thinking, like, how did this game become the most popular MMO out there? Like, it's so bad, it's horrible, it's nothing like what I remember. But anyways, I heard about EverQuest Next. Same story as you guys. Got all pumped about. I actually paid for whatever, some sort of pledge for Landmark, and did something with that. But it all ended up crashing, and I don't even remember exactly where I heard about Pantheon, but I'm pretty sure it had something to do with EverQuest Next. It was one of their some blog post or some follow up or something where somebody commented and said, hey, it's okay, don't lose hope. Pantheon is the real MMO that's coming out. Like, this is the answer. And I'm pretty sure like Pantheon had a stream or something come out like that day when EverQuest Next was canceled or whatever officially. They had something. So that's when I found out about it, and I was pretty much hooked from that point. And the reason I knew specifically that Pantheon was the game for me is because it's the only one. It is the only game that I've seen that is looking to deliver something for my exact tastes. Something that the things that I care about in a game, the things that I remember being important, the memories that I have that are all meaningful to me. This is the only game out there that I've seen that is looking to bring those kind of things, those things back. Like, I literally gave up thinking, you know what, hell, I guess I'm just not going to play MMOs anymore, and just always remember being a teenager and being in my early 20s and those memories, and that was going to be the end of it. And once I joined the community, I think I was a regular member for like maybe a month or two, and I exhausted all the threads and communicating, and I bumped it up to VIP, and I did the same thing as Saicred, and checked out Brad's blogs. And having had that prior experience with Vanguard, that's something that really sold me too, by the way, is I played Vanguard and I loved it. I really, really enjoyed that game. I loved everything that it represented, the ideas that were there. I just knew that they had issues that were outside of their control. If that game could have had a fair chance to be published right and had more time to get things right, it would probably still be here today. I honestly believe that. So when I found out that, I saw Brad specifically touch on, hey, we made some mistakes back in the day, not blaming other people or whatever. There's lessons learned, and I'm a big fan of that idea that when bad things happen, you need to learn from it. And that's good. That's real experience that they have in this genre with making these kind of games. They made a game that had a ton of potential. They had that loyal, amazing fan base and everything, and it just wasn't done the right way. And to think that, okay, here's 2.0, right? Like, we were excited about EverQuest Next. Well, this for me was Vanguard Next, essentially. That's how I looked at it. This is going to be that bigger, better, newer version of Vanguard. They're going to get things right. And I saw specifically where Brad touched on those comments where he said, hey, we're going to do things the right way this time. So that's what sold me. As far as like the favorite feature or whatever, I'm really looking forward to raiding. I know it's not going to be the biggest part of the game. It's just going to be, who knows, whatever we get, I'll be happy with it. But I'm super pumped about raiding, super pumped about Progeny, colored mana. A lot of the features that they have, I'm really excited about. But raiding is my number one thing that I'm most excited about, because that's where you can bring all your friends to play together. That's what I miss. Like, it's having one group is fine. Being in a guild, it's great to have all these friends and whatnot. But when everything is just group based, you start to have like little mini factions inside the guild where this person plays with this person. I had my static group, I play with the same people in and day out. But with raiding, you have that opportunity to bring everybody together to fight for that bigger cause. And the majority of my fondest memories in MMOs were related to raiding. So I know Pantheon, there's potential that we're going to see like massive scale raiding, like they've talked about it, where there might be raids that have no cap. I'm hoping that they go with a bigger cap, but I'm not exactly sure where they're going with that yet. They haven't released a ton of solid information in terms of what to expect, but that's it. That's what I'm looking forward to the most, is bringing all the people together and however many nights a week we get involved. It all depends on how much content there is, but that's what I'm looking forward to the most, is bringing all the friends, all the people in the guild together, and working towards that greater cause.
Yeah, it's interesting. Before we move on, I'll comment on something you said. Some of your greatest memories in your life have been about raiding, right? Probably hardcore raiding. And I understand it's the achievements and everything. I was there too, and those are some big achievements I've been proud of over the years. But I got to tell you, I still think some of my greatest memories, and 187 and I had talks recently where I'm going to be taking a role in Pantheon where I'm going to be streaming, I'm going to be promoting. I want to, to me, it's going to be about the journey, right? the journey is important. We got one shot at this to get that journey right. And it's not gonna be perfect, but my point is the journey it's over time, right? So my greatest memories came with picking up just random, you come up with maybe a couple friends, but then you pick up a couple more friends and you end up playing the entire day together and doing dungeon crawls. To me, you get into a dungeon maybe you haven't been before. Maybe it's kicked your butt several times before, and you find the right synergy in a group, and all of a sudden you spend all day, you knock that out, a couple people get some upgrades, you're having so much fun, you're like, shit, where else should we go, right? So then you pick up and you traverse across the land into unknown territory, right? You might have some good experiences and bad, but at the end of the day, you remember that journey together. And to me, that quality time is what sticks out in my mind. And I think that's the kind of stuff that is drawing me to this game. Now, I'm not saying rating's not going to be exciting. Everyone wants the big drop. Everyone, you want to get big and powerful so you can go lead those dungeons a little bit easier, right? Or help the guild out even further with their next advancements, things like that. But I just wanted to comment in my mind that my biggest experiences actually came from what I just described in dungeon crawls.
Nice.
Good stuff.
All right, so we're going to push things forward then. Next topic is going to be economy and marketplace. And I know, Saicred, you're the one that really wanted to touch on this subject, so please take it away.
Yeah, so basically the idea with this, and I've read a couple things in the forums about it, and again, it's one of those deals where the more and more we have conversations about it, the more and more we start to get the real true picture of what Pantheon's trying to do with this. And I don't know all the details to it, so I'm not going to try to pretend like I do, but one thing I do know is they've been very big on stating that they want to see the economy and market trade be meaningful. And for me, when I think of games like World of Warcraft with global auction houses and things like that, the economy, or even with EQ2 and the Chronos system or something like that, economies are finicky. It can be just one particular thing, one particular item, one particular way that they're being utilized that really tips the scale and takes the economy to a place that no one really wants it to be at. So for me, this is kind of a back and forth discussion point that I wanted to have. I didn't really want to come through with a bunch of thoughts and ideas on the economy because, again, I think that we don't know enough about it just yet to really have too big of an opinion on it. But I do want to say I'm curious to see and to hear what other people have thoughts on, because for me, when it comes to the economy, one, local vendors versus global, I'm a huge advocate for that. I want to see where walking into a city and having the reputation to go up to that city and go into the marketplace has value and meaning. I want to be able to say that because I'm certain a race, or because I've really done my due diligence to get that reputation, I can go to this particular market within this certain city and buy items at a cost that I can't do anywhere else. I'd like to see the ability for us to really find ways to bring together those cities and those races and those reputations and put some more value behind it. So the economy itself, yeah, that's great, but I think it actually kind of wraps the whole game around it. You really have crafting come into play. Hopefully we have different races that are able to give us different types of crafting. I know that was already stated, but at some points where we might have an elven type of gear or item that's only created once you're able to learn the elven way of doing the said crafting or said woodworking for I don't want to get off into this subject, but woodworking for such things as housing. Maybe you want a certain look. Well, to get that certain look, you might have to have either someone or some way of getting into a city, into a certain market, or even having those individuals come out of their city and their market to somewhere where you can buy that item. So again, I think that there's a lot of things that wrap around the economy of the game, and I just wanted to hear really between you two, I wanted to open the discussion up and hear, is there any thoughts that you have on What are some of the biggest pieces of the economy in the past? Like I said, for me, it's a global auction house. I think it destroys the economy, in my personal opinion. But is there anything that you've seen that really helped the economy, or just really destroyed the economy in past games that you've played?
You want to go ahead
Go
first,
ahead.
Ryan?
Go ahead.
All right. So, honestly, I think the some of the really important things already you touched on is the localized trade. I think localized banking is also going to be really important. Um, giving players an incentive to do things player to player rather than just using the auction house, I think is also very important. So having regional auction houses, I'm all for that. Having regional banking, I'm all for that. And then allowing players to circumvent the brokerage fees and link up with actual players to buy things. Hopefully, will be meaningful. So I would be a fan of a higher broker fee, maybe 20-25% or something like that. That would be fine with me. But more than anything, too, I want to see meaningful items again. Like that's something that I haven't seen in a lot of games where they have all this no trade stuff or this bind and equip, all these different tags that they throw on items that water down their value. I'm hoping that with situational gear and acclimation requirements and all those kind of things, that's going to bring back specific items having a high value. Like in my opinion, the game that did it the best was Final Fantasy 11. They had meaningful gear in every tier. Like you could be level 12 and there would be a mob that could drop something that if you were lucky enough to get that, you could be set for all the way up to like level 40 if you were really lucky enough to get that drop. So um, I've always been a big fan of the economy game myself. Like I spend a ton of time buying and reselling, and I did it in basically any game I've played. I've been filthy rich by abusing the auction house, and but the way I look at it is the more barriers to entry, the more things that we have to work around or whatever, the better, because there's less people that are going to be willing to go that extra mile. It's going to create uh, merchant opportunities, for players to find these good deals, whether it's buying stuff from vendors that other people might have sold that they shouldn't have, or buying something from one region because you see the supply and demand for a specific ore or herb or something like that is it's more available over here, but they need it over here, and transferring that stuff around. That's going to be something that I'm going to have a ton of fun with. So I know I'll have a character in every region. I'll have all bankers and all that kind of stuff. And I'll have a ton of fun with it because I just, for some reason, I just always had, I always have a lot of fun, messing around with the economy and buying and reselling. And I know a lot of people hate it though. I know there's a lot of people that think that people who do that are vultures, because you kind of snipe the good deals, is what they say. So instead of letting, somebody else get lucky and find that item for a really cheap price, I'm on there trying to find it and then get the good deal on it and then resell it. But I've always preferred to do that with my time rather than farming. In most games, Final Fantasy 11 was the exception because that game they really had farming on point. There was a lot of stuff you could do with your time to accumulate in-game wealth. But in any other game that I've played, I never wasted time farming. I always spent my if I was looking to accumulate wealth, I played the auction house game and bought and resold stuff. So, like I said, the more challenging it is, the more barriers to entry, the more regional locations here, there, whatever, the better for me. And I'm hoping that other people feel the same way because, the trade and the economy, it's super important. It's like one of those things that can make a game feel like it's dead, if there's not anything special out there. And so yeah, I'm super pumped, super pumped about you know finding my niche inside of the economy game and running with it.
Yeah, so my comments on that are for those of us that have played EverQuest, the organic things that happen, like these common tunnels. I remember one time running through somewhere and I needed some ingredients to finish a quest, right? And I used to go search the vendors, right? You go search the vendors around specific areas, and those vendors would have player sold items on them. And I thought, how cool is that? Someone else really didn't care to take the time to sell it because there wasn't an automatic auction house or something where you just no brainer, you put it on automatic mode and you go to bed. This was where it was live selling, right? You had to go advertise. You know, the East Common Tunnels became the thing where everyone would congregate and start, you know, auctioning off in chat, by the way, which is really cool. And you'd have to actually study the chat. You'd have to look at what people were selling. But I remember running by the vendors, and some of them would just say, screw it, they don't want to sell it. They go sell it to the vendors for the quick gold. They move on. And that was your chance to go capitalize, either find those really cool items that you could resell and take the time to resell and build your, you know, money supply that way, or you can find, you know, some amazing things you might need for your quest. And it was really cool. They're talking about, and again, this hasn't been confirmed, but they've been talking about something similar on the player economy where they're going to have vendors in the same mode. Now, we don't know when those items are going to flush out on those vendors, but they're talking about similar type situation with that, which I think is excellent. You know, I don't want to see it also. And the other thing that I thought was important to talk about when we talk about economy, the devs are constantly talking about ways to deplete items, right? So let's say someone produces a bunch of silver swords, or because they're crafting, or, you know, a lot of times in typical MMOs, you create 20 silver swords or whatever just to advance your skills. What do? You turn around and you go throw those on the auction house. There's going to be incentives now to take those silver swords. Again, this is just an example of one item, let's say, but they could take those silver swords and either meld it into something else, or they could, you know, there's going to be options in the game that might be more enticing than to just simply, not necessarily an auction house, but to go sell those, or whatever they're going to do to sell those items, right? They're going to have ways to deplete items out of inventory so that you don't see an abundance of the same item pretty much equal no value later, right? So it's they haven't figured it out yet, what it's going to be, but I can tell you it's going to be player driven. I think it's going to be exciting. And if you're the kind of person that wants to spend your time working the marketplace, you're gonna come out ahead versus someone like me that's probably a little bit more impatient. I'll admit it. You know, there are times I want to do it, and that's the other luxury is sometimes I want to do it, sometimes I don't. At least the option will be there. So I think for those that love that kind of stuff, I think you got an exciting economy in Pantheon.
Well, and so one of the things that 187 pointed out, and I think, you know, I'd like to highlight is making items meaningful. You know, I've heard that actually, you know, a few times now where, not, from my understanding at least, not many items are going to be looked at to be bound. They want items to be out there to be meaningful in the market and the economy. They want things to be sold. They want things to be traded. You know, they want players to be able to interact by, you know, kind of passing some of those along and seeing where they go. And again, for me, I think having, you know, just like 187 said, having meaningful items on the marketplace, items that are not just cosmetic, that don't just look pretty, items that actually have meaning to them, value to them, where you don't necessarily have to go into a raid, where if you happen to be someone who, you know, stumbled across something and has a load of cash, you can potentially buy an item off the marketplace, whether it was crafted or whether it was a piece of raid loot, that ultimately helps your character and your progression, even maybe more than going out and doing a raid or doing something on your own, a dungeon or something like that. So I think that for me, it has to be a meaningful part of the game. It can't be just let me go buy stacks and stacks of stuff to work on my crafting skill, and then, yeah, all right, I'm gonna go do raids because I can't get anything off the market that, you know, has any value or any meaning to me, besides maybe some cosmetic mounts or gear or something like that looks really nice or something of that, you know, nature. So I'm looking forward to having some of those meaningful items hit the marketplace and really help push that idea forward of, you know, continuing to incorporate the economy and the market as a major piece of the game, not just a necessity for some to get levels on crafting or smaller items of gear or stuff like that. So yeah, no, I don't really have a lot else to add to that. There's only one thing, and I wanted to throw it as a curveball to see opinions on this. But one of the things that I saw in the making the city video was a lot of stalls in the city, and this is just one city of many, but a lot of stalls. When I looked at that, I had a few ideas come to mind when it came to the marketplace per se, and a few of those ideas were one, potentially there's gonna be a lot of different vendors out there. Going from vendor to vendor to vendor, like you said, can be a fun time, but for others it can be a little bit tedious. And they might not enjoy it nearly as much as we do. So I'll get your thought on that, but I also want to get the thought on the idea of, again, purchasing a guild or personal vendor to sell items, to sell things like that, not just having a said auctioneer there, but having some of those stalls occupied by some individuals or NPCs that are personally bought by players. Things like that. Do you see that in Pantheon? Do you think that that's going to be something that we may see, or do you have any reservations about something of that nature?
Personally, I think that we are going to see stuff like that. They have alluded to the idea of, us having carriages or wagons or whatever that we can haul around. And there is a thread that's actually active right now that Brad recently commented on, where with outposts, outposts are going to be a big deal. We might be able to set them up inside the city. We might be able to set them up at different locations in the world, like outside. Like he said that maybe your outpost could be attacked, so you'll have to have people defending them. And I think that could go a long way too, because I agree. As much as I love the auction house and all that, it's even more meaningful when location is important, right? So if you have a dungeon and somebody has the opportunity to set up some sort of stall or cart or whatever there, and they know that this particular dungeon has a lot of mobs that blind you or whatever. So what do? Supply versus demand. They bring some sort of cure item or whatever that cures blindness, whatever. It could be a cold acclimation area where they sell, something that boosts up your cold acclimation. So being at the right place at the right time, it should be meaningful. And I think we are going to see that with outposts. So it's not just going to be like the stalls inside the city, but that is a great part of it. Like you said, they might find it tedious, so they just sell it to the first person they see. So there are going to be people out there that just literally go from one stall to the next just to see what's available, buy low, sell high, take advantage of all that kind of stuff. Another thing I'm looking forward to, though, is something that I saw in Final Fantasy XI, which is the wares for a merchant to actually change based on things that happen in the game. So, for example, in Final Fantasy XI, there were 3 factions. There's 3 major cities you could pledge your allegiance to, and they were constantly in competition with each other, on a weekly basis to take over as much territory of the world as possible. And whatever city took over the majority of the world, they would get some sort of city bonus, for the week. So the merchants inside the city, they might sell like an improved food item or something that otherwise would never be available. So I'm hoping to see stuff like that where the stuff that we can buy can actually change based on um, actions that take place in the game, whether it's player driven or well, it should be player driven. It should be things that we do, whether we you know clear out a cave of skeletons or something like that, and now that opened up a trade route, and the farmer X all of a sudden has a crop that he's able to sell at a cheaper price, or now he has an improved item that he had before that otherwise wasn't available. So uh, looking forward to that kind of stuff. The gear or items from merchants being able to change and fluctuate somewhat based on changes in the game, and the outpost is a really big deal. That's one of the things that they have said is a future thing, like maybe post launch. I don't know if it's going to be ready when the game launches, but I do think that that's the direction where we're going, where we'll be able to set up our own stalls, and location actually be very important, and that's a good thing for everybody.
Yeah, so a couple of comments in the chat on kind of what we're talking about. So from what my understanding is, just so everyone's clear, is they are not going to create, they're going to steer away from any kind of instant type situations. This is going to be an open world where everything's happening. Now you might have to zone into the next segment of the world, but it's still going to be live. You're going to, it'll be open to everybody. In other words, there's no instancing. Now they said there might be some selective type situations where it might tie into the storyline or the perception system, something like that. So keep in mind, there's not going to be a whole lot of instances. It's an open, live, dynamic world, right? We haven't even talked about rare mobs, which is something I wanted to, if we had time, I wanted to talk about. It's one of my most exciting things that stands out for me. A lot of people are asking, gee, what are some of the big differences? Well, that's another one, rare mobs. So keep that in mind. I know there's some comments there. There's going to be no instances for the most part. Open world, contested stuff. Which is part of the frustration / part of the fun, right? Again, that's another difference there. So again, with economy, I really think they're not going to take shortcuts here. If you look at everything else they're doing and they're so like passionate and firm about on their decisions, I really think the economy portion is going to be similar. They're going to follow a similar path. It's going to be player driven, and you're going to see a lot of the cool things like 187 just mentioned about outposts, which I need to catch up on that post. But again, just another reason this game stands out as a difference from other MMOs.
Yeah, no, and then the outpost, you'll definitely have to read that. It's really, really, like I said, I thoroughly enjoy reading Brad's comments and input. So I read that today as well, and really exciting stuff. I'm definitely excited about that. I think outposts are going to be a huge piece of the game, and they are looking at a post-launch, so it's going to be a while. But one of the things that they keep stating is they want to do it right, and that's something that's not just with outposts, but that's with the game. Overall, they want to do it right. They don't want to just rush anything out there, throw it out there because they can or because it might give them a little more revenue or something like that. They want to take their time and do it right. So again, if you haven't read that post, make sure you go read it because it was a really, really good post. And it does tie into the economy and marketplace because we are looking at, like 187 said, like you said, we're looking at that localized market and potentially, finding that perfect spot with that perfect solution to a need may make you very profitable. When it comes to outposts, when it comes to being a localized market and things like that. So I'm excited to see it. I didn't have a lot to cover on it. I just wanted to bring it up because there's a lot of opinions swirling about economy, market, being localized versus being global and things like that that I think are really interesting just to hear other people's opinions about. So
hold on, let me permit 187.
Yeah, I'm gonna link that post really quick where the outpost thing is discussed.
Yeah, really good post.
So 187 is going to thank you for that. He's going to post that article or basically the forum post that I guess you said Brad did.
Yeah, it looks like I gotta wait 30 seconds until it's gonna let me send it.
Damn Nightbot.
Yeah,
Who allowed Nightbot? Who allowed Nightbot in this stupid chat?
Yeah, so this post, I think it just came out yesterday from Brad, and it ties into some of the other stuff we were talking about too. Or I'm sorry, it's not really related, but another post that Brad made recently was talking about server events. Like, he emphasized being in the right place at the right time. So he used this example of storm giants. If you guys haven't seen that, that's another gem on the forum. Where he talks about, there could be something that happens in the world based on player actions where, you could be on one side of the world and ring a gong or something like that. And then on the other side of the world, these storm giants take over this hill giant camp that otherwise would be inaccessible. And I think the point that he was drawing is that he likes the idea of rather than, killing the same mob over and over and over and it having like that uber rare drop where it's 1 or 2% chance of getting it. Instead, they want the events themselves to be rare, and you have a high likelihood of getting that good drop. So he said that world awareness and being in the right place at the right time, that stuff is going to be really important, and that's great. I mean, that's the kind of stuff too that I don't think people are going to be rushing to post on the internet either, right? If you find this amazing event that drops really good stuff or whatever, um, I'm sure some people will get it out there as fast as possible, but uh, having that information is going to be meaningful, and the more things that they do like that, the better. And it kind of ties into that same thing we were talking about, being in the right place at the right time with the outpost. Having selling supplying something that they're in an area where there's a demand for it. um, Location is going to be important, and travel is going to be important. You're not going to just be able to teleport all around the world. You might be able to get close to something, but you're going to have to hoof the rest of the journey, either running around or on your mount or whatever. So that's another thing that I'm super intrigued about, is to see how they make navigating the world a part of the challenge. That's something I miss, and I know a lot of people think, oh, who cares about that? It's downtime. It's wasted. It's a waste of time. I don't want to spend 20 minutes getting from here to there. And we got that. The people that didn't like that, well, congratulations. That's what we got. You got instant teleportation and all that, and it ruined a bunch of stuff. So looking forward to location being important, and uh, more than any of that, though, the idea that being at the right place at the right time will create windows of opportunity. That's something I'm really, really excited about, so that players can leverage their knowledge of the world, and their awareness of what's going on around them. If you have a friend that says, hey, yeah, such and such is going on, you got to get here quick. And quick, might be 20 minutes, but that stuff is really exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing more things like that, more events like that Storm Giant one that he shared.
Yep, and they've clearly said they are not going to allow any kind of easy, fast travel. Like, you're going to have to personally get there on foot, or maybe later on mount, but you're going to have to get there personally before you can get there. Hold on, let me permit 187.
I'll do a 30-second timer in my head, because that was the issue last time.
I could just make you mob. So before I forget, we have one more subject. Looks like we're doing great on time, guys. But also 187, in the meantime, can you look back through, I know my chat at least, I've seen some great questions we didn't get to yet. Evoker was one of them. There's some good, you might have to scroll back a bit to
Yeah, I
get
got
it.
them all. I
Okay,
in the Discord.
Thank you for that. Let's make sure we answer that before we move on to perception, assuming everyone's good on time. One thing I wanted to bring up that I was really excited about, and the post itself in the forums did really, really well, and it spiked a lot of interest, and it was one of the few posts that I think we could all agree on. It didn't have a whole lot of controversy, right? Because you have different opinions about all kinds of things. This one, everyone kind of jumped on the bandwagon and was excited about it. And what this is, it's called Campfires. And I actually talked to some of the devs about it, and it kind of actually came up in the Pantheon when we were there at TwitchCon. I really think this is something they're considering, guys. Again, speculation, nothing is, I can't speak for them, but I'm just saying it had a lot of positive interaction and topics and thoughts about it. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I'll try to explain it. So the whole idea of Pantheon 2 is they're always trying to increase social interaction, right? That's their thing. They're going to have a good chat system. They want people to work together to accomplish things, or have reasons to work together, right? You just don't blow past somebody like in most games and not care. So one of the things they talk about doing is there's going to be some downtime in this game. That's a fact. So in WoW and some other games that you play, there's hardly any downtime. Your mana's full, your health's full. I mean, you move right on and you go right on and rush to the next question mark, right? In this game, there's not going to be any question marks. There's not going to be exclamation points. You're not going to know where the hell to go. There's going to be an open world, 2 continents. So who knows? It's going to be bigger than that. There's going to be a sea to cross. There's going to be all these things. It's up to you where the hell you're going to go and how you're going to get there. And along the way, they talked about creating these campfire zones. And again, it's going to be specifically set up in key areas, right? The only way these campfires become max potential, and when I say potential, is extra buffs, unique buffs that you're going to get as a character, is if different players come by these campfires and you hang out. You have to be there for, let's call it 10 minutes. Every time a new individual comes and hangs out there for 10 minutes, it increases to a new capacity. There could be a potential of an NPC bard. If you get enough people there, he comes along and he starts playing a melody that might give you a buff for 20 minutes or something. As you can see, what's happening is the community, you might not even be grouped together, but all of a sudden you might see the fire in the distance, and when it's dusk or whatever, you run to it, you all start hanging around, and guess what? It starts encouraging that social interaction, right? All of a sudden you start making friends, all of a sudden you start having fun, all of a sudden it's not about killing all the wolf packs or something you were doing, that maybe that grinding work you were doing. You're over there, you're getting special buffs that now is going to help you go do your next thing or whatever. And guess what? You're probably going to get a friendship or two out of that. It's a cool concept. Again, not finalized, but it was something that took on a lot of, I think, impact on the forums, and they had a lot of positive interest in it.
I don't think I got a chance to read that, but yeah, I like the idea myself. I think it sounds really neat.
187, you saw that, right?
I did see it. I don't remember how long ago that was, but it does definitely ring a bell. I do remember that example being shared specifically where they talked about, you could see the campfire and then you go to see what's going on there, and there could even be like leftovers. You could even possibly tell maybe people aren't there right now, but that campfire is still there and going, and you can add to it. So I do remember seeing about that, and that also, I think, is something that might be tied into outposts, honestly.
Yeah.
The campfire, yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned this, because if you read that outpost thread, I actually talk about campfires and how, one of the things that I think would be cool is being able to have higher quality meals at campfires. So rather than like instantly consuming food, it might take a little bit of time to prepare it and actually eat it, but you get a nice buff for it. And as we adventure further into the game and we get into some of these more volatile environments, you might not be able to make a campfire in a dust storm or in a blizzard, right? So as you improve the quality of your outpost, maybe you can do the campfire inside of a cabin or something like that. And that's something that I think there might be potential with, like maybe if they mix acclimation into the outpost, maybe you need to reinforce the outpost to be able to withstand certain kinds of elements outside. I think that'd be a kind of a cool progression thing, and to give people the opportunity to make pit stops in the world, so these outposts have value not just to your group, but maybe to the next group that passes by after you're long gone. So it's good stuff for sure.
Yeah, and you know what? I know we're going to move on to the next subject soon, but Dan, you just touched on another. I had a lot of questions, and I know a lot of the people know the answers, but let's say there's someone out there that doesn't. Here's another reason that Pantheon is so different, right? It's called the acclimation system. And I'm not going to get too involved. We could talk about another hour on this thing. This could be a subject on its own, but just so you know, in this game, there's going to be an acclimation system. I want to say, guys, correct me if I'm wrong, I thought it was 7 unique zones, 6 or 7, right? It's going to be things like fire. It's going to be things like ice. They even have a zone, an area, again, that you run into. It's going to be called gloom. If you're not acclimated properly, in other words, you're going to have like up to 5 pieces, I think it was, that you're going to have to build up to. You can't get into the deepest part of those acclimation zones until you go and search and acquire those acclimation pieces for that specific zone, like that condition, right? So maybe it's an ice bridge, right? We've all seen it on the videos. If you don't have your 5 pieces of acclimation gear in some of those situations, you're not going to get to the deepest parts of that frost acclimation zone. Pretty awesome stuff. So here's just another thing, and I don't know how hard those pieces are going to get, but I imagine that those 3, 4, and 5 pieces are going to be probably a challenge to get. You know, there's going to be, you're going to have to work at it a little bit, and that's exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to be clear on that, so there's 6 different acclamations or atmospheres in the game: rigid, scorching, toxic, anaerobic, pressure, and wind shear. So for anybody that was curious about that.
How many total?
6.
6, yeah.
Did you include gloom in that? Because I do remember them showing gloom in that.
Gloom is definitely one of them.
I do, but it's not mentioned on the official
It's 7,
statement.
I think, total now.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, so they're going to have 7. So gloom is a new one they've added, and it looks like a green, foggy mist.
Yeah, that was on the stream, right?
Stuff. Yep. So there you go. There's another thing that makes this game stand out. It's going to be fantastic. So 187, you gathered some questions. I think it'd be a good time to, if you want to bring those up.
I'll shoot them over to you guys. We got, I think, like 5 or 6 more. So, let's see here. What kind of AI does Pantheon have? Is it like the rest of MMOs, where it's responsive to your actions and pretty predictable, or does it adapt to the choices you make? Did one of you guys want to answer that, or?
Can you say it one more time?
What kind of AI does Pantheon have? Is it like the rest of the MMOs, responsive to your actions and pretty predictable, or does it adapt to the choices you make?
Can I start?
Yeah, go for it.
I love, because this is another area I'm passionate about. Sorry, but, and again, I talked to Brad McQuaid at TwitchCon, right? He actually laughed at me at one point because I was talking to him about a lot of my wild ideas, and he's just like, man, that's fucking awesome, but it would be a programming nightmare. But he said that, you know, they're working on some really creative artificial intelligence. And so I'm going to keep this short because this could be a really fun subject, but here's what you can expect. I'm pretty confident that, you know, you're not going to have the same scenario twice, right? You're going to have mobs that have a couple different options on how they exit the scene. Let's say you wear them down. The mob's either going to get afraid at the end and decide to run for it, and some of these mobs might run at a faster speed, some might not. Some mobs might make a decision to stay and fight, and maybe they get some kind of rage, maybe they get some kind of berserker motion going on. You don't know, and it's going to be completely situational. So I think there's some exciting things coming with the mob intelligence. And again, it's all about how they can program it, but I'm pretty confident they're going to throw some pretty cool stuff in there, which is going to be really fun to try to counter with your classes that you're playing.
Yeah, no, and I'm really the only thing I can add to that is the dynamic encounters. They've talked about that before as well, even when it comes to rating, how the AI will potentially act differently based off of, you know, how many players you have trying to do the engagement, based off of just the fact that you're there, what you're doing when you're doing it, or maybe it just hits a different line of AI code where it's actually performing different abilities and things. So I think they've not gone into detail too much about that, but I know that it was mentioned, and I forget I think it was in the December stream, if I'm not mistaken, where they were talking a little bit about it, where potentially you would have a different encounter a lot of times when engaging some of those top tier raid bosses or something like that. So I think that they're going to have a very dynamic and unique AI experience, hopefully, and I'm excited to see it as well.
Yeah, one thing that they're going to do specifically is utilize all the different dispositions. So we don't know all of them yet, but they've shared a lot of examples on the VIP thread or the VIP forum where they call it the pancake analogy, where, you know, they have layers and layers of code and priorities on what a mob will do here, what a mob will do there. But by mobs being able to respawn as a different disposition, that could change things up a lot. So I think that's going to be a primary factor when it comes to, you know, AI is going to be huge. So certain mobs might always try to kill a healer. Certain mobs might have a higher aggro radius if your health is low, or certain mobs might completely ignore tanks. There's the possibilities are endless in terms of what they're going to do. And the really cool part about that I'm excited about is the potential for emergent AI, for us to find out exactly how these dispositions work and then potentially find ways to use it to our advantage. So that's going to be fun to try to uncover in testing. And I'm sure that we're going to break some things. I'm already
Oh yeah.
looking forward to that. I could tell you right now, when I think about these AIs, I'm going to be looking for ways to use them to my advantage. And, you know, like I said,
Aren't we all?
the possibilities are endless with what they can do. So maybe it's possible, like Saicred just was saying, that one time you fight this raid boss, its ads are the first or second disposition, and then the next time you fight it, they could be completely different. And I think that's really important for replayability, not just like with raid mobs, but just going in a dungeon. I don't want that same groundhog effect they experience again and again. I want things to change a little bit, and it wraps. It also ties into awareness. Once you're able to identify um, the different dispositions and knowing how to prepare for it, they're putting a lot of emphasis on the preparation phase of combat. They want you to think about what abilities you're going to be using on the next fight, what gear you're going to wear, all that good stuff. So dispositions are the big uh, the big bonus, I guess you could say, when it comes to advanced AI. Something that we're going to be able to look forward to.
Good stuff. Good stuff. And any other questions there?
Yep, there's a few more. I'll be real quick with some of these. Are death penalties going to be a thing? We know that absolutely yes, death is going to be meaningful. They were not 100% sure if you're going to be able to de-level. They've kind of gone back and forth on it. I remember seeing at one point that de-leveling was rolled out, and then I remember seeing that it was back in, and then I see it was out again. So I think that they're thinking about the potential for de-leveling. My biggest concern with that is the death penalty at max level. If you can't de-level, then how are people going to be penalized at max level? And we actually had a discussion in the VIP forum recently where we thought that you could play with a buffer, and then so let's say you die, you might not be able to de-level, but you can get XP debt. So let's say you're 1% in, and then you lose 5% upon a death. That will put you into debt, and while you have debt, you have a penalty of some sort. It could be a big debuff or whatever. So there is potential there with how death can still be meaningful at max level without the possibility of de-leveling. But death penalty is absolutely huge. It's one of the driving factors for bringing back challenge into the game, and it's something I miss big time with some of the older games that I used to play. How will they keep players interested after max level? That's a multi-pronged effort. I think it's going to be a mix of a bunch of different things, of between progeny for one, re-experience the game all over again, go and do some of the things that you might have missed on your first run, having a bunch of meaningful content when it comes to like situational gear, like Pyye was talking about earlier. In order to get to a certain area, you might need 5 pieces of a certain set. So there could be all these different places scattered all around the world where you want to get to, but in order to get there, you got to go to other places in the world to get the pieces from there to be able to go over here and all that. So that stuff is we just need content. We need meaningful content where there's going to be a lot of stuff to do. So that's something that I'm confident that we'll see. 3 more questions. I'll shoot these over to you guys. How wary should we be with the Pantheon hype train?
I'll start with that, actually. So I want to be clear on that, because personally, I haven't seen a quote unquote huge train, and that is purposeful. VR has actually come out and stated that they want to be very, very careful on when they are creating such a quote unquote hype train. They're trying to keep. Let me see if I can phrase this correctly. They're trying to keep hype in check at this point, the best they can. And the reason for that is we don't know if how testing is going to go, how long it's going to take. We don't want to create a hype train that fizzles out within a few months before the game is even released. Instead, what we want to do is we want to get in there and actually test the game thoroughly, have time, have the capacity, and have the freedom to really get in there and test it to where it needs to be, get the game to where it needs to be, and then when we get closer to that release date, let's start talking about hype trains then. And they've already started putting things in place, getting things ready, looking at like streamer program during maybe even alpha beta, as we get closer to release, activating some certain isolated streamers to help promote the game, things like that. Not just one, but many in the community that are helping test and things like that. So they are starting to put things in place to build up a quote unquote hype train towards release, but they have been very clear they're trying to keep that in check at this point in time. They do not want the community to become overexcited and really start to fizzle out, because I know that I did it when I first got here, and I don't know about you two, but when I first read everything and saw everything that was going on, and I got so excited about it, and I couldn't contain myself. And then after a few months, it really started to set in. I gotta calm down. This is a long road. I gotta be in here for the long haul, and that's what people need to start understanding. This is going to be a lengthy, this is a long-term game. It's not something that we're looking to get in and play for 40 hours and then be done with it. No, this is a game that we're hoping to play for years and years to come. So when you talk about hype trains, those go away. Those end up falling out to the wayside. So we want to make sure that is done in a timely manner, closer to release preferred.
I'm super guilty of it myself. I got a couple Pantheon hype videos that I've worked on. I remember just dedicating a bunch of time working with my brother and just thinking like, oh, we're so excited. We just want to share this. We want to get the word out there. We're just so pumped, so hyped. And but you're right though. I think that the majority of the hype is coming from the players. It's not from VR. They've kept the tight lid on things. They want to control it. They don't want people, jumping out of their skin or anything like that. But at the end of the day, people are still doing it because we know that this is the only option that we have for us. It's the only kind of game that is gonna cater to the type of community that we are. So the hype. I would say that there is a hype train, but it's not VR that's pushing it out there. It's the players, and I know I myself am pretty guilty of doing that, and I just can't help it. Just so damn excited. So.
Yeah, my comment on that is, I think you two both know this, and maybe some of my guildmates know this, is I was pretty hyped up. And matter of fact, I had to take a little bit of a step back. I was really active on the forums, trying to get all the answers I could out of the devs. And, we were thinking, I know a lot of us were thinking that it was right around the corner. We're getting into pre-alpha. We didn't really know a lot. Looking back, we didn't know a lot. So me personally, I, plus 187 and I, spent some time building, the organization of guild and just different things. And that hyped us up, and his passion and getting everything going, the guild website. I mean, you can see we were doing all that without a game to play, right? So there's all this hype going on. And then once, and I think he'll admit this, once all that was laid out and everything was kind of perfect and we've had some guild meetings, all of a sudden we're going, well, where's the game, right? There was a time I literally had to step back, and you probably saw the activity on the forums and stuff kind of stopped. And, and then I kind of just slowly just kind of let it organically come back and, started letting some of the new people in the forums get all those silly questions out of the way, right? You guys probably saw that. There's all these same questions pouring in, and you're like, Kilson's just going to have a field day with these guys, right? Certs or Basgrim or whatever, filling, giving them links and like 40 different links if it's already been talked about anyway. So I've now come back. The hype is there. I need to do it personally, and I need to focus on work and some other things. But it's real, and it's coming, and we're about ready to test this game, and I think we're going to learn a lot during that testing, and it's an exciting time.
All right, we got two more questions. M City Maniac. I haven't kept up with much. They have said anything about personal vendors, auction houses, or what they're going to do with that type of system. So I think we already actually touched on this one a little bit. with personal vendors and auction houses. So I think we actually answered that one already, anyways, just when we were talking about the economy. So, and then the final question is from Cormac Sinclair. What feature plan has the potential to be the most innovative and interesting mechanic in Pantheon?
Can I start?
Go
We're
for it.
gonna have different answers. I hope we have different answers on this, but
Okay.
again, I'm gonna say rare mobs. Okay, we didn't really touch into detail. I'm gonna talk a little bit about it, and then we'll move on to what you guys. But so the thing I get excited about in this game, here's another aspect, is the dynamic gameplay. When I say dynamic gameplay, is you could be in a certain zone, you could be doing a certain activity with your friend. Maybe it's you're grinding and killing some mobs in a certain quadrant of the zone, right, or doing something. And the cool thing about this game is they're going to have rare mob spawn triggers that honestly you might not have seen, or another player might not have seen, because they weren't working that specific area of the world. And again, this isn't rare mobs in the sense of World of Warcraft. You know, every 2 minutes that rare mob's going to spawn, right? It's going to be there to finish a quest, or it might be in a general area, but you know damn well 2 minutes later it's going to be there. That's all we're talking about. We're talking about this mob might not even show up for a week if people aren't clearing some of the mob spawns within that certain zone, right? And so when it does spawn, there's a couple things that I've been told that could happen. One is you have to figure out a way to kill it. It's going to be usually pretty typically, it's going to have unique abilities. It's going to be a little bit tougher to deal with than regular mobs. Who knows, it could even be a higher level, a little bit higher than what you're camping in that particular zone. But guess what? It's going to have a unique item it's going to drop. It could be a really cool, unique item. Maybe it's an appearance item. Maybe it's a quest item. Maybe it's an epic drop. Maybe it's, who knows? It's going to be unique. Which is really exciting. And then guess what? It's going to eventually get on the wiki, and you know, just things like that. Where, man, you're going to need that mob to finish a certain quest, and it's that dynamic gameplay about rare mobs that you don't see in other MMOs quite like this.
So 187, is this the last question that we have before we get to the next topic?
Yep.
Okay. Do you want to throw your input in here, and then I'll lead us into the next topic with mine?
Sure. Okay, the question again was, what feature plan has the potential to be the most innovative and interesting mechanic in Pantheon? It's really tough to say, you know, for me, because it's really a culmination of everything. There's so many different things that they're talking about bringing back, and it's not even necessarily innovating as much as it is like bringing back the old stuff. But they are innovating too. That's the cool thing. They're evolving the genre. They've talked about that a lot. You know, so like I want to say Progeny because you know it's not really something that we've seen in other games, but at the same time it has been done. It's called Remort from Mud Games or whatever. So I don't know. It's really tough to put a finger on what's going to be the most innovative and interesting mechanic. I think it's going to be a combination of everything. But if I had to pick one, I would say Progeny, only because I feel like it has so much potential with replay value and giving the veteran players, the seasoned players, something to continue working towards. That's something that's been missing in other games. That's the thing where, you know, people make it to the end game and they kill stuff and then they log out and they only come back on the raid. Like, you know, when you get to the true end game. Final Fantasy 11 had a subclass system, and I'm hoping that it works kind of similar to that, to where, you know, you can go back and re-experience some of the stuff that you didn't do on your prior adventures, and it has an impact on your main character. You know, so you don't necessarily need to roll an alt. It counts as your main. So they haven't said a whole lot about. I mean, I've resurrected more Progeny threads than probably anybody. I've definitely said my fair share of what my thoughts are on that topic. But I think that they're not 100% set in stone that you are going to have to retire a character. I do remember seeing a specific post from Brad where he talked about, where he actually acknowledged and he said maybe having a person retire their character is too much. You know, what other options are there? And he talked about, you know, maybe people sacrificing gear. And this goes back to what we were talking about earlier with the economy and having these item sinks. Some are going to be, sacrificing items at an altar for a buff or whatever. Another one could be something tied into progeny, where when you want to uh, re-roll or whatever, it's not you don't have to retire it, but maybe depending on the quality of the gear that you sacrifice, it could have some sort of impact on that next generation character. So that would probably be the main one for me. Would be progeny.
I think 187 actually answered the question better than I did. I will admit it. I had to throw the rare mob thing out there because that's one personally I'm super excited about. But yeah, that's a great point. 187. I think that's something completely unique that they're bringing. I've never heard of that in another game.
Yeah, and you started the conversation out there, or the response out there, 187, with it's kind of a combination of everything, and absolutely. I mean, I think that, and that's one of the things for me that makes me most excited about Pantheon, is the fact that we do have the climate system, spells, really putting it out there where spells are found at, where you can actually acquire them from, how you're going to get them, how you're going to use them, things like that. I think they're really doing some things with spells, and again, most of these things are not just being done for the first time in Pantheon. The progeny system, it's of course it's very unique, but it's still been done in other games. Having spells and dropped in dungeons, having them on a sage in the back of a cave somewhere, having them crafted, things like that. They've been done in other games, but I think it's a combination of a lot of these things coming together, like the climate system, the spells, dynamic encounters. We've already talked about that. Dispositions and behaviors, the AI, working on that with we talked about that as well. Progeny and situational gear was one thing that they brought up, or we brought up from time to time, and little tidbits. But basically, again, knowing your environment, where you're at, what you're doing, all that's going to kind of come into play. And then for me, and I know this isn't quite maybe unique to just Pantheon, because I'm sure that there's other games, and personally I've never played them, but I'm sure there's other games that have done the perception system similar to how Pantheon is planning on doing this. But one of the things that really stuck out to me with the perception system alone was, and that's kind of the next topic we'll lead into as well. But one of the things that stuck out with me was the fact that I'm going to be able to explore this game and potentially come across things that I didn't know were there, and they redirect my course of the night, the evening, the week, even, of what I'm going to be doing and how I'm going to be doing it. And for me, I look back on the old days when I first started in EverQuest, and I'm a young one, so I was 11 years old in 1999 when EverQuest hit my door for the first time. And
yeah, I'm young too.
Yeah. So I was a young kid, and the thing that really drew me into the game was just exploring. I played the game for 5 years and never once reached max level, and that's because every night I would get on, I was like, oh, I'm gonna do this, and then all of a sudden I'd find myself, it's kind of like being on YouTube. You go from one video to the next video, the next video, the next thing you're like, how did I get here? What am I doing? What am I watching? Where am I at? That was kind of my experience with EverQuest every night, and that's my hope, to have an experience like that with Pantheon most nights. I want to get on, and I want to start going towards something, going to achieve something, and then all of a sudden I'm derailed by a perception, or by something that strikes my attention, and I go, well, what's that, and how can I go find out more about it? And it just takes me on a journey, takes me on an adventure. It consumes me. For the night, for the evening, for the week, for the month, whatever it may be or may not be. But it really takes you to a place of immersion, for me at least, that I'm extremely excited about. And I think the perception system just helps kind of lead me in that direction even more so than I would in a normal basis. It allows me to really explore the game in the hopes that I might run into something that I didn't know about or wasn't expecting, and then the next thing I know, I'm down a path that I wasn't looking for, or never even considered.
Not to cut you off, can you, for those that may be out there that don't understand exactly what perception system is, maybe you could take it to the next level and just kind of your interpretation of what that is. Another unique thing that makes Pantheon stand out.
Yeah, so okay, so the perception system to for what it's been explained at this point in time, the perception system is a system put in place to where you will be going through the world as a particular race or class, and you may come across a individual NPC or a statue, an object, and it may trigger a perception. Now, there's two types of this. You have the active ability, which is insight, and then you have the passive ability, and I forget the name of it all the time, but you have an active and a passive ability. The passive ability may actually alert you to something. The active ability you may actually have to use in areas to where you may not be alerted. You may have to actually use it to find clues, to find information, little hidden gems that really kind of tell you some of the lore, some of the potential mobs that you may be facing. So, for example, you may be looking at a scroll on a wall that's outside of a door of a boss, and you may have an insight skill level that's high enough to where you can see what you're about to encounter or get some hints to it, and then potentially know how you should go about that encounter. Things like that within the perception system. There's a very broad range of it. But the difference that it comes from, the difference that I'm looking at it from the questing system is a quest, I could go up to an NPC, and in other games you have the giant marker, the question mark, whatever it may be. You have a line that shows you where to go, what to do. Not so much in Pantheon. Pantheon's taking it back to that old school questing type frame, and you may have to have the perception system to find certain quests. But then again, you may have certain quests out there where you might just talk to an NPC. They tell you, hey, I need you to gather some scraps because the armor's getting low on the guards for the city. So to increase your rep, go outside, find some scraps, bring them back to us, and then we'll, turn them into me. And that's a quest. But it's not going to give you an arrow. It's not going to tell you to go here and do this or to this exact location. It's going to be, hey, we need you to go find this and bring it back to us, and something like that. So you have the questing, and then you have perception. Again, perception is that in game I'm roaming around, I all of a sudden have a passive perception. I need to find out what it is. I can either embrace it or decline it. I can either travel down the road and find out more about it, go talk to the NPC, or go read the scroll, or I could simply just ignore it and keep going about my business. It's an active skill that they're looking to really bring to light in Pantheon from what we've seen, and we don't know all the ins and outs about it. But what I do know is, for me, I'm excited about the fact that I could be exploring the world, and all of a sudden I'm now down a road that I never knew about or never expected to be, just because I received a perception. Whether it was through my passive ability or whether it was through insight. Maybe something caught my eye and I said, well, let me use my let me use my active ability to find out what's around here and what's going on, and see if I can find anything that I may not see without using that sort of system. So I hope that answered the question. I know there's a lot of information there, but my mind is in the late hours gets a little foggy at times. So did I touch what you needed there?
Yeah, I think you pretty much nailed it
Okay.
in terms of what they were asking. So,
Okay.
Hey, Saicred, were you good to go till another 30 minutes? What was it?
Yeah, I'm good to keep going. I just, when I start talking, once it gets past midnight and I start talking, sometimes I'll lose my train. It'll drift off the
Okay,
rails
I
a
was just
little bit.
making
So
sure we've got about 30 minutes to wrap this up, so I think we're doing pretty good. 187, if you want to comment on perception real quick.
sure. I think that they've done a pretty good job explaining how it's going to work. But I have unfortunately seen a little bit of controversy on the forums, where people are kind of implying that it's the same thing as a quest or whatever. What's the difference between this and the traditional quest that pops up, with an exclamation point over somebody's head? And I think Saicred kind of just explained how it's actually going to work. There could be the passive buff where when you're roaming by, you hear a woman crying or whatever, so you didn't really have to do anything to notice it. It kind of just popped up because you had that skill, and that's fine. Maybe that's something that people are used to, but that's only one aspect of how perception is going to work. The other part that I think people should be excited about is the part where you actually have to investigate. So, how many times have you been, playing an MMO or whatever kind of game, and you find some interesting area, and then there's nothing there. You get to the bottom of a dungeon, you find some cool altar or something, and you're just like, oh, it looks like something cool happens here, but I'll never see it. There's nothing going on. Um, I think that aspect of perception is going to be really cool. There's going to be uh, monuments or whatever, something in game that piques your interest, and you see it, and you're like, hey, there might be something going on here. Maybe I need to lift up this rock and find something, or maybe I need to try to poke through this and see if there's a secret entrance or whatever. So I'm assuming maybe there's going to be some sort of timer on it. I don't think it would be quite as effective if you could just spam that ability to see if something is available in the area. I think if they put some sort of timer on the ability, and people have to actually, uh, you know, make a decision, a meaningful decision on when they investigate an area. I think there's a lot of potential with that. There could be real secrets in the game. There could be something that literally you walk past and you have no idea that there's something underneath or behind something or whatever that could lead to something great. And having that active skill that you have to investigate, I think opens up a lot of potential for a sense of exploration and discovery, and uncovering secrets. So I think perception's a really cool feature. I've seen, again, some people kind of have that negative take on it, like, oh, it's nothing new. They're just slapping, a new name on something that we're all used to. It's nothing special. But I haven't really seen anything like that in other games where you can inspect an area to see if something's going on. I mean, it's a cool idea for sure. So I see a ton of potential with this specific feature, perception. I think it's a good thing for the game for sure.
It will, and I want to point something out. Thank you for correcting me. Yeah, I get them mixed up all the time. Insight and investigate. Insight is the passive ability from the perception system that you'll have as you're traveling. So you'll have an insight, and then you have investigate, which is the active ability, which you actually have to use to investigate, certain locations or certain items or things like that. So
Yeah, my comment on perception is, again, here's another thing, right, that they're doing that's different. They're kind of giving you again, they're not going to put anything on rails. When we say putting things on rails, you're not going to see the obvious glow trails or question marks or exclamation points above NPCs' heads. Again, this is an open world. You can do whatever the hell you want. You need to go out there, and that's exciting to me. I mean, it's really your decision. You put a group together, the hell you want to do, right? I mean, it's going to be completely up to you. I can tell you right now, I will be building perception up. Honestly, unless you're just nothing but a crafter, I mean, who wouldn't build perception skill up just to kind of see where it leads? I don't know. You're a different kind of breed. I'm the kind of person where I've got to know. I've got to find out, where is that next clue? I will spend all day long trying to figure out what that next clue is. Might be doing it wrong, but I will be the one out there trying to figure it out, and I'm excited about that. Secondly, I don't know if I can't remember if it was touched on or not. It could be class and race specific, right? They said that. So if you're a cleric and you're really gung ho about building your perception skill, and it could be a couple other class, maybe it's paladin, cleric of the holy class. Let's say you come across a glowing emblem on a dungeon wall. If you happen to get close enough to that glowing emblem because you have an interest in it, that could trigger a perception just to that specific class, okay, of the Holy Spirit, or whatever you want to call it, of that certain deity or whatever. So let's say you then do that, and then now you're going to have to figure out and investigate and try to take that to the next level. To me, that's an awesome idea. I mean, that is something really cool. And you know what? If you're not clever enough, or if you forget about it, or I think they're going to have a way to log it, so you can kind of circle back to it. But it could literally just disappear off your radar. You might forget about it. So I mean, it's a really cool feature. I think that they're going to fine tune as we go forward. I mean, actually really anxious to see where that leads in testing. If any of that is even going to come out in testing, because just to comment on Basgrim. So I have some regrets already. When I was in TwitchCon, I was a little starstruck. I was more interested in talking to the devs and doing that kind of stuff. I did get to play for, an hour or two. But Basgrim, he took it and he actually started wandering the world. And I'm like, damn it, why didn't I do that? Why didn't I take that opportunity to go wander the world and see it firsthand? I don't know. It was one of my regrets. I was just like, I was trying to figure out the spells. I was trying to help Brad attack these mobs and be the best shaman I could be at the time, those kind of things. I didn't think about wandering out in the world and even seeing if, and I guess some of those perception quests trigger already. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, and so you talked about the race and class, combinations, maybe having certain abilities or seeing certain perceptions that others don't. To me, that's a huge factor for the sake of if I'm grouping with certain individuals. Let's say that I'm a team of 6, and we have the same 6 individuals that we go do dungeons and we go explore with and we go quest with every single night. Potentially because I'm not really spreading out and meeting new people or grouping with other people or doing different things. There's parts of the game where I may not really see the full picture or be able to even access a certain room, because I don't have a certain race or class with me in my group. To me, that means that I'm gonna have to make sure that I've got enough friends that out there that I might be able to use, or not use them, but utilize their, either skill set or race or class to access certain perceptions, so I can go do those, so I can go explore those and experience those. Again, I just think that I like that idea. I like the fact that they're actually making it where you have to, or you need to, or you want to even really expand your pool of friends past just a few to make one group. You want to have multiple, and there's multiple reasons for that. Crafting being limited to one profession, perceptions being limited to race and class. There's other things along the line as well where you're going to need more than one friend in this game to be successful, to experience the entire game and to really have everything come to you like they want to. So for me, I really enjoy that idea. I think that it's a really great idea, and I'm glad that that they went that way with it. So I know we have a little more time. Anything?
So what I was going to say at this point, and I put it in my chat already, let's take this last 30 minutes, and for your chat, my chat, everyone, this is a great opportunity. This is going to be now an open discussion for 30 minutes. And ask some questions, ask some things maybe that intrigued you tonight or sparked some other thoughts. And now's the time, throw some questions in the chat. And then 8187, you're going to be challenged to pick out which questions we're going to talk about. So let's take the next 2 minutes, throw some questions in chat, and let's circle back and we'll start talking about it.
So I don't know if you got any questions, 187, but I'll say something. So Vex brought something up in my chat, which is I prefer to solo so I can randomly AFK. It's more of a joke, but I did want to bring up the solo factor, and people are going to try. People are going to try, and I'm excited to see what people are able to do and accomplish trying to do things solo. Yeah, I'm all for it. If you want to give it a shot, if you want to go for it, I'm happy to see that there's people out there that are going to attempt it, because I know it's going to be attempted. I know it's going to be done, but at the same time, I'm also excited that from what I've seen, the focus of the overall game is on group play, because that's what I enjoy the most, whether it be in a dungeon raid or just out questing, exploring with a couple friends. For me, I've played enough games, enough MMOs, and enough times over the past so many years to where every time I think back to a memory, I think of the people that were there with me. Not so much what we did or how we accomplished it, but I think about the people that I was experiencing that with. The conversations we had, the funny comments that were stated, or just the pure excitement. And when we had finally accomplished something that we've been trying to accomplish for so long. So for me, solo was great, and I'm happy that people will be able to at least attempt it. But I'm very, very pleased that group content has the overwhelming majority of focus in this game from what we've been told so far to date.
No doubt. That's exciting stuff. Can't wait. I don't want to be able to do it all as a character. I want to feel helpless and actually have to go get social relationships and be nice to people and build relationships that can last a lifetime. I mean, gee, why not?
All right, so the question that we have right now is from Archdire. He's asking, is there any solid information about the actual act of crafting and whether there will be any skill involved?
Oh, I don't think we have that information yet. I will say this. So VIPs have gotten a treat, and we got to sit down with, and I never can say his name right. Corey. Is that how you say it? Cethos?
Oh yeah, I think that's his actual GM name is Cethos. I could be wrong, though.
Okay, so we got to sit down with the developer that's actually putting together the crafting system, and have a roundtable, and it was inspiring to hear the passion and the ideas that were coming out of that. And I'm not going to go into the details that were stated there, but I am going to say I'm extremely excited about crafting myself. Whether there's a skill involved or not, I think the ideas and the concepts and just the ways to make it meaningful and useful and fun that were coming out of the conversations were definitely something to be excited about. So I'm looking forward to it. I don't have the answer to that question, but I just wanted to state that it's something that, based off the information I have today, I'm really excited about it. And I'm not one to be excited about crafting in most games.
Saw some good questions come through in X7.
Okay, we have, how do you guys feel about the concept of the new gaming market being based around focusing on niche communities instead of huge general audience grabs?
I'll try to answer this if I can. Let me read it one more time.
You said you were going to reread it? You see it in chat?
I'm reading it to myself, yeah, because it's a complex question. But if I read this right, so focusing on niche communities instead of huge general audience grabs. So Pantheon, to me, and they've stated it openly, is they are definitely marketing this toward a smaller, not the masses type of following. And what's cool is, you know what, Saicred, you're a good example, and you give me hope because, I'm an older guy. I played EverQuest in 1999 when I was supposed to. Okay, at the appropriate age. All right, but it just goes to show you that I'm excited because this game's pulling in a younger crowd. I didn't know that was possible for a while, but it's really cool to see that there's also a younger generation, which to me equals a bigger type of marketing pool, right? But they've said openly, to kind of go back to the question, I think it's a positive thing that they're marketing this toward a very specific niche market. And they've said that they are going to build the funding around this niche market. They're not going to try to steal from WoW. They've said that. That's not their goal. Their goal is to take care of like-minded folks like ourselves, like a lot of us out there. It gives the game that we want to spend, hey, I'll say it, the next 8 to 10 years in. I know that's a stretch, but shit, even if it gives me 2 to 3 solid years, that's a hell of a lot more than other games have done right now. And I think there is so much more. Go to pantheonmmo.com if you haven't already. There's so much information on that website about the differences and what it brings and why and how they're catering to this niche market. And they're going to find a way to financially, be able to maintain this game. We have confidence in that, and keep providing this niche market game. So I think they're doing the right thing. And you know what? They're taking a hell of a risk to go this route too, because no one else is really doing it that I've seen. Everyone else is kind of just appealing to the masses on this, right? So there's another reason why I want to support them, because they're willing to take that risk. I'm willing to take it with them.
Yeah, agreed. I have one from my side, if you don't mind, 187.
Go for it.
All right. So I had one from Breaker929. I like that name, by the way. What do you think will help contribute to keeping the world feeling huge? Most MMOs end up making you feel the world has shrunk or isn't that big. You know what? 187, do you want to kick
Sure.
off?
I think the biggest factor of all is going to be meaningful travel. You know, I really think that's going to be the thing that's going to make or break the size of the world. You know, we don't want to see people being able to get to anywhere. You know, we will see teleportation spells, yes. Like, you know, there are probably going to be druid rings. There's probably going to be wizards being able to teleport people. But if you look at like the feature page or the tenants or whatever, they specifically say how you might be able to teleport, you know, to X, Y, or Z area that will get you close to where you're trying to go, but it's never going to get you all the way there. There's going to be some sort of journey required to get from, you know, these teleportation spires or druid rings or whatever to where the meat and potatoes are content wise. There's going to be you know, navigation. You know, you're going to have to go through mobs and not just necessarily run through solo stuff. Like, that's the thing that sucks that I've seen in other games, is that the majority of content is solo stuff. There's no danger. You know, you can literally run. It's like, okay, we're gonna meet up at Raid Zone X or whatever. See everybody there at 7. Like, that's lame. Like, what I remember back in EQOA, we're gonna go to a raid zone. Okay, well, we got to meet in Lava Storm first, and then we're gonna have a 45-minute journey going through Lava Storm together to be able to get to Solus XI, because that's what it takes. Like, you can't just run there solo. There's danger on the way there, and there's no way to just teleport there. You couldn't just skip Lava Storm. You had to navigate through Lava Storm to get to Solus XI. So having the meaningful travel really, you know, limiting the teleportation spells to some degree in terms of the final destination and how close it is proximity wise to the more highly sought after or exotic places in the world. That's just, you know, that the VR team is just going to have to design it that way, and I think they've made it pretty clear that that's a goal for them. And I think that's really all it takes. You know, you don't need to have a truly massive game for it to feel big. You just need it for the travel to feel meaningful. And they did say too how the zones are going to be really big, right? The zones are going to be bigger than what we're used to and seeing most games. It's not going to be your typical, you know, really small tiny zones, and you move from this one to this one to this one and all that. The zones are going to be pretty huge. The scale of these things, just look at the Throne Fast video, you know, for example. Like, this is just the city inside of a zone. Like, look how big that city is, like how big
And
that
actually,
castle
and
is.
to your point, that was the making of the city, right? You need to check out the video.
Right.
But there's been complaints that was almost too big. I mean, I've seen the latest ones come out and it's
Right.
like, oh my God, it's too good. I just want to go to the bank and it's gonna. Well, you know what? They're gonna bitch about it now, but they'll probably appreciate it later. That's my opinion. It's the same thing with travel, fast travel.
Yeah, no.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and I tried to throw it to 187 to see if you would come up with something different, because the first thing when I read the comment, that was exactly the first thing that thought came to my mind was travel. You know, I can remember all too well in EQ myself. I could spend an entire night just traveling from one city to another so that the next night I could do something in that city. So, you know, and it made the game feel more enjoyable, more real, more I guess you could say massive, because again, it took time to get there, and along the way, it wasn't just me running straight. It was me dodging mobs, trying to avoid encounters, trying not to stumble across something that was hidden behind a tree that I didn't see, and then all of a sudden I'm now doing a corpse run, and it was a journey. It was an adventure every time I had to get out and go do something like that, and I really enjoyed that. So I'm right there with you. I think the easiest way for them to continue to make Pantheon feel huge, massive, and like it's something, you know, magnificent to you know, size wise, that travel, you just got to make it meaningful. You got to make it a journey. You got to make it an adventure, and you got to make it take time. So I completely agree with you on that. That was a good answer.
Yeah, and they talk about scale all the time, and this is going to come up as we move forward in testing. Scale, scale, scale. They said it in Making a City. So they are painstakingly. You should see it. Watch that. You got to watch the video. I mean, it blew me away about the amount of time that they're putting into details as far as scale, and like the massive door, right? I mean, you look at the door and you're like, well, gee, it's a little huge, but there's reasons in the lore. There's reasons they do this, and there's reasons that it takes a certain distance to even get to the bank, and you know, it'll all make sense, I think, down the road. I have a lot of confidence in these guys, but scale is one of their biggest things they always talk about lately, and they want the world to feel big, and I believe that when you're in the world, having some of these things we just talked about, it's going to feel big. You're going to have to plan out your activities, which I think is fantastic.
Yeah, and they showed it off pretty good too, with the Amber Phase Zone. They showed like being up top or whatever and seeing people way down below and having to go on this journey where you got to climb over stuff and jump over stuff and land on ledges, potentially fall to your death. And they also showed the acclamation there, which was super cool. I think that was like one of those unique areas where you actually have to have multiple acclamations. Like you go from really, really cold to really, really hot when you get next to the forge. But that zone alone, once you're really high up there, you can see it. And I think that's beautiful, when you can see the whole zone from that high up perch and appreciate, like, yeah, look where we're at now. Remember 2 hours ago when we were down there? You see that group that's down there right now? I think they showed that in some of the videos where you could see, like another team, another dev team or whatever was there, really far below. But that's exactly what you were talking about with that huge size and scale. Uh, there's plenty of examples of it. The Making of a City video is a great one, and the stream where they showed off Amber Fate Forge, I think, was another really good one for sure.
Hey, one question I want to get to is Fantasyastic. It's a very good question. And then when you look at a guild like ours, with our mindset, the Divine Council, I want to go ahead and address this. I love controversy. I think it's the spice of life. I want to hear your opinion on this question. When I said, if you go back, I could read it if you want, but I think you probably have it.
I know what question you're talking about. On my server, there's a Pantheon guild of about 300 active players. They require you to play 16 hours a day to join and dominate the entire server. Since it's open world, how does Pantheon plan to deter this no-life Zerg behavior? The answer to that is it's okay. So they accomplished it to some degree in Vanguard, by having ghosts. Ghost spawns are basically when you kill a raid mob, it has a chance to respawn a short time later. And again, none of these numbers are set in stone or anything, but my understanding in Vanguard was that it could be like somewhere between 4 to 6 hours. Okay, so you kill a raid boss, and now it's down. 4 to 6 hours later, it respawns. Uh, for the group that killed it originally, it now respawns as a ghost, which means that you cannot kill it again. You have a lockout associated with that mob. I'm not particularly a fan of stuff like that because it's kind of like instancing a little bit. I mean, it's not an instance per se, but it kind of accomplishes the same thing. But I understand the need for it. So my personal preference is competition, competition, Wild West. Let people fight over everything and, do it that way. That's some of my favorite memories was racing for stuff and killing stuff and all that and dominating and, but then again, at the same time, I get that it's, I remember in EverQuest 2 where my guild killed 98% or whatever of contested mobs for an entire expansion, and it was great for us. But when you think about all the hard work that goes into creating these unique encounters that drop some of the best loot in the game, they're some of the most thought out and well designed encounters in the game, and then when you limit the interaction with those encounters to just the super most competitive guilds, it's kind of a shame that some of the most well designed encounters are enjoyed by so few. So that said, I definitely appreciate the idea of having ghosts and preventing one guild from uh, blocking progress from others. Like it sucks, and I'll admit that I've been a part of that. That's the way I looked at it back in the day was if you don't do it, then somebody's going to do it to you. So that's just how it was. You wanted to prevent another guild from being able to progress, because you know, like there were contested mobs, and you didn't want them to kill it, because then if they kill that, then they're going to get access to this other zone where they could get more loot, and then with that loot, they're going to be more competitive to fight over all this other stuff. So people were looking for opportunities to block others, and I don't. I'm not going to say I miss that, because having been on the better end of it, where I got to enjoy everything and show off the good loot and all that kind of cool stuff, it was great, all that. But I will say that it's not good for a game. It's actually a damn shame that when you have the best content reserved for less than 0.5% of the population or whatever. Like that's not good. It doesn't give people something to aspire to. That's a concern I've seen time and time again on the forums, where it's just like, I want to do this, I want to do everything else, I just can't wake up at 3 a.m. I can't do this, I can't do that. What's going to be done to prevent that? So that's one thing that they're going to do. They're going to have ghosts to where mobs are going to respawn. Multiple guilds are going to have an opportunity to kill them. No guild is going to be able to block others. Now, this isn't going to happen with every raid mob. I think they mentioned that in there, where some mobs are probably going to be truly contested. But especially like with epic mobs, like I've heard horror stories of, people needing a certain update from a contested raid mob, and then that thing is on farm status for like a year and a half, and they never got an opportunity to kill it. When it comes to quest mobs and epic mobs, and or mobs for epic quests and stuff like that, I think that those will all have ghosts. I don't think that they're going to allow guilds to purposely block others from being able to progress. Now, there will probably be other mobs that are contested, and that's fine. Open world competition. It goes back to the example I shared earlier from Brad, where he said being at the right place at the right time, right? So if the storm giant thing spawns, if you're not there, then you're not able to take advantage of it. It's not going to always be available. You have to have the awareness to know that it's an event that's available for you to take advantage of. So that's one thing. They also touched on shards. Again, that's not something specific that I'm excited about, because it's kind of like an instance. We had it in EverQuest 2, where if you have X amount of players in a zone, it would open up a second version of that same zone. I saw this exploited by guilds, where they would purposely trigger these second, third, fourth instances to get these contested mobs to spawn again. So, like, realistically, each server, you're only supposed to be able to kill Tarantula once, per week. That's the influx of loot that the designers made. But players were able to bypass that and force pop these other mobs by flooding the zones. They would do stupid things too. Like, I wouldn't say stupid, it was clever actually, but they do things like, oh, giving away free buffs, or whatever, doing something, come to Sinking Sands, and they do it in all the global channels. Next thing you know, there's 3 or 4 Sinking Sands up, and these guilds are doing that on purpose to just spawn more mobs. So but that's another thing that they're going to be doing. They're going to have shards. So I don't know exactly how that's going to work. I guess that's another thing that worked in Vanguard, where if there's a certain raid, a wing of a dungeon or whatever that one guild's in, you might have the option to go to a different version of it. Again, it sounds really like instancing to me, so I don't know. I don't know what their exact plan is on it, but I do know that they care about making content accessible. They don't want one guild to dominate and crush and prevent others from being able to enjoy the game or aspire to greater things.
All right, so here's my comment on that. This is what I feel. I think that one thing we didn't touch on is that they are going to design raid fights to have a certain amount of people. It could be 24 people, right, on the say particular mob. If you start exceeding, if you try to be a Zerg guild and you try to go after it with 40, that mob is going to be so difficult you can't pull it off. And they don't know how to reprogram it yet, but in other words, you have to go at it with the 24 people the way it was designed. So my second comment to this is, I still think no matter what, you're going to have a dominant guild on every server, and it's just the way it's going to be. They're going to have the forces. They're going to have the the tenacity to figure things out, to be where they need to be, organized fashion, to knock things out. I don't think it's going to be limiting to other guilds. I think, to 187's point, there's still going to be ways for other guilds to participate. We don't know what those are going to be yet. But to answer Fantasy your question, there's going to be a top guild on every server, and that's just the way it's always been. You can't prevent it. The only thing they might add to that is that they're going to have other options for other guilds to experience that same type of fun or that same type of learning curve when it comes to certain raid bosses. So anyway, that's just my 2 cents.
That sounds about right, actually.
Yep. No, I agree completely. I know we're getting close to wrapping it up here. So I'll just kind of add on to that. I agree 100%. I think that no matter what you do or don't do, you're always going to have certain guilds, certain individuals, certain groups, whatever it is, that are going to be able to perform at a higher level. They're going to be able to play more. I'm a wife, 2 kids, full-time job, yada yada yada. I get maybe 3-4 hours a night if I'm lucky to play the game. During that time, I look to have some meaningful progression during that time. But at the same time, I understand that I shouldn't be looking or expecting to be a quote-unquote elite in any sense of the way, shape, or form. For me, that's maybe half the time that some of these other individuals have to play, and I understand that. I get it, but I'm looking forward to having a game to where I can get on for a few hours a night and do something meaningful. But at the same time, I can also see those individuals that are able to, they're fortunate enough to be able to play for 8-12 hours a day, and without and we still be able to play some of the same content, enjoy some of the same adventures, enjoy some of the same raids and things like that. So I think VR is looking at that, and they're trying to find ways to ensure that everyone, no matter what their schedule is, no matter how much playtime they have, will be able to log on and have meaningful progression each night. So that's something I'm excited about, whether it be raiding, dungeons, crafting, questing, whatever it may or may not be. I think that that's a good topic to end it on, because there's a lot of discussion that comes from that as well.
All right, we are right spanking on time. We are at midnight here, Central Standard Time. Saicred, I know that's and actually 187. That's an hour later for you all. So anyway, hey, look, just in closing, I appreciate everyone being here. Saicred, this has been so much fun.
I agree.
I'm really glad our friendship's growing. I think you're a great guy. I think we're gonna have some fun in Pantheon, no doubt about it. 187, really appreciate you being here as well. I think you've done a wonderful thing establishing a guild like you have without even a game to play. My goodness. Just some of the things you've done, great passion. I think some exciting times ahead. Chat and both chat rooms. Hope you all had fun. This is really our first attempt together doing this. I'm sure there's going to be many more. We're excited about it. We're excited about testing next month. So anyway, just in closing, thanks everybody. Thanks for being here. I had a lot of fun. I'm sure everyone else did too. Great times.
Hey, I appreciate you guys having me. It was a pleasure. We got to talk about a lot of good stuff. Saicred, been a pleasure, obviously, getting to chat with you and get to know you a little bit better. It's been great. I appreciate it, guys.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. I enjoyed it, guys.
All right, Saicred, you're free to go, my man.
All right, guys.
Sleep, brother.
Yep.
We'll talk to you.
Take care. Have a good night, everyone.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So 1 second here. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. Can I do it this way? I have to activate my cam. Hey, there we go. All right, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and get off here for tonight. Appreciate everybody stopping by, hanging out. It's always a pleasure to get on here at night and just get to chat with people about Pantheon. I have a lot of good fun with it. So I appreciate everyone stopping by. As always, come by anytime, ask me questions about Pantheon. I'll stop any game I'm playing at any given time to talk about Pantheon, guaranteed. I'm extremely excited about this game. I'm looking forward to testing this, coming up month. And even with the NDA signed and things like that, as that comes out, and once we get those signed and we're in testing, I'm going to try to find ways to still reach out and have some open discussions with the community, letting people know, what I'm excited about and passing information as I can. Again, it's not going to be maybe as frequently with NDAs and things like that. I have to keep in check. But we're going to continue to try to pass information and promote the game via stream. So thanks so much, guys. I really appreciate it. And you all have a good night. We'll see you later.